I could easily slap the former emperor to death, yet here I am, playing blacksmith in this dump. Everyone thinks I am a nobody. They do not know my coal tongs are actually the ancient heaven-slaying sword, or that the black lump propping up my table leg could trigger a multi-world war. That stone is a legendary realm-shaping relic. As a transmigrator, I can only unlock my sealed cultivation by taking a disciple. I have trained over 1,000 layers, yet I have not recruited a single student. To blend in and survive, I opened this shop. But my daily sign-in rewards keep piling up. God-tier materials are literally piled like mountains. I just treat them as scrap, forging random tools for some peace and quiet. But today, the system playing dead in my head finally made a sound. Ding! Detected a top-tier candidate nearby who fits the criteria for recruitment. Host, act immediately! The moment I heard the prompt, I dropped my hammer and scanned the street. My eyes locked onto a girl around 16. Wearing a red dress with a sword on her back, she looked cold as ice. The passing sect disciples were staring so hard their eyes almost popped out. They were practically drooling, but she ignored them and kept walking. I quickly opened my system panel. Holy cow, the reincarnated. 9 heavens mysterious maiden. Those words almost blinded me. Without wasting another second, I lunged forward to block her path. Get out of the way, Lung Qingchu snapped, glaring at me. Why are you blocking me? Wait up, young lady. I rubbed my hands together and smiled. I see great potential in you. How about you become my disciple? Her lip twitched, and she looked at me like I was a complete lunatic. A disciple? She let out a cold laugh that felt like ice blades slicing my face. An ordinary blacksmith with 0 spiritual energy? Before I could even process that, she was already gone. I shouted after her. Change your mind. Come find me anytime. All I got was a cold snort. If she were at her peak, I would probably be an ice sculpture right now. Watching her walk away, I scratched my head in frustration. Failing on my very first try? This is a nightmare start. Then, I slapped my forehead. Of course, why would anyone believe some random blacksmith? I should have pulled out the heaven-slaying sword. By the time I realized, she was long gone. After thinking it over all afternoon, I decided to head to the Sky Profound Sect's grand recruitment ceremony to try my luck. Early next morning, I made it to the sect's main plaza. The place was absolutely packed with hopeful youths. Squinting through the massive crowd, I quickly spotted that familiar red dress again. Before the trials could begin, I hurried over to her. Hey there, young lady. Talk about fate. We meet again. Lung Qingchu looked surprised for a second, but her face immediately turned icy. Still dreaming about making me your apprentice? I grinned. Of course. If you take me as your master, I promise you will hit the jackpot. Her face instantly turned to stone. I made myself clear. You simply are not worthy. I was ready to pull out a god-tier technique to blow her mind, but hearing that killed my mood. Fine. If that is how you feel, forget it. I turned and walked away, not wanting to waste another breath. She watched me leave, a mocking sneer on her lips. As the legendary 9 Heavens mysterious maiden, nobody in this world was worthy of being her master. She only came here for the sect's resources anyway. I took a slow ox cart back to my shop. A little 8-year-old girl ran out to greet me. Her name is Su Yao. I rescued her from the snow 2 years ago. The system says she is my future top disciple, but the timing is not right yet. Seeing my gloomy face, she crept over. Brother Fan, what is wrong? I waved her off. Nothing, just some annoying stuff. Hearing this, she dashed inside and quickly brought me a cup of hot tea. Her sweet, caring gesture made me smile instantly, and all my worries melted away. I was relaxing on my rocking chair outside, soaking up the sun, when a sharp smell of blood jolted me awake. I opened my eyes and saw a young man dressed in black, standing right there. Boss, I need a sword. He was pale as a ghost, blood dripping from his mouth. As I got up, the system in my head suddenly chimed. Detected suitable disciple candidate. My movements froze. I carefully inspected the boy. Feeling my gaze, he forced a weak smile that looked more like he was about to burst into tears. I was secretly thrilled. I thought I would have to wait years. But here he was, delivered right to my door. The system panel popped up, displaying all his info. Keeping a straight face, I handed him a rusty old iron sword. He took the sword, paid, and turned to leave. Hold on, I called out. I feel like we are meant to cross paths. Why not stay for a cup of tea? He hesitated, then gave a bitter nod. After all, he had a massive blood feud and nowhere else to go. I shouted inside, and the little girl working the stove chirped back a happy, "Coming!" In seconds, she bounded out, effortlessly carrying a massive solid wood table with one hand. The boy's eyes went wide. That table had to be at least 200 pounds. I was used to it, of course. When I first took Su Yao in, I realized her physical strength was insane. She could toss huge iron blocks around like toys. "Brother Fan, no bitter tea today?" she asked, tilting her head at the boy. "We have a guest. Let us serve the good stuff." The boy watched us, his eyes filled with mixed emotions. He picked up his cup and started drinking desperately. As he gulped it down, tears began mixing with the tea. Once he calmed down a bit, I handed him a rag. "Feel any better?" He wiped his face, his voice still choked up. "Sorry for making a scene." I waved my hand. We all have our struggles, especially when you are carrying a heavy blood feud and have absolutely nobody left. He was looking depressed, but hearing my words, he stiffened. His cup shattered on the floor as he jumped up, his hand instantly locking onto his rusty sword hilt. "Who are you?" His guard was completely up. Why would a random blacksmith know his secrets? A random blacksmith inviting him for tea while knowing about his blood feud? He drew his sword, pointing it at me. Su Yao immediately jumped in front of me. "Don't you dare touch Brother Fan!" Unbothered, I slowly laid out his entire identity. Chu Feng, the sole survivor of the imperial capital's Chu family. With every word I spoke, his sword trembled harder. "If I wanted to hurt you, would I have offered you tea?" I chuckled, gently pulling Su Yao behind me. "Your talent is decent. Interested in becoming my disciple?" Chu Feng's eyes widened, then slowly lowered. He could not sense any power from me, yet I knew his deepest secret 7, the massacre of his family just 3 days ago. "What can you teach me?" he asked, his voice dry. The veins on his sword hand bulged. He had run into too many traps on the run, but this man seemed different. "So, what is your answer?" Externally, I was cool as a cucumber, but inside I was panicking. What if he ran away like Long Ching Chu and just walked off? "What can you teach me?" Chu Feng asked, wondering if this was his lucky break. Rumors said hidden masters lived among mortals. If I was the real deal, apprenticing was not a bad idea. But then, I suddenly pivoted. "Let me see that sword." He frowned but handed it over. I inspected it casually. Total garbage. The second the words left my mouth snap, that heavy steel blade shattered into pieces under the pinch of my 2 fingers. Chu Feng stood there, completely dumbstruck. That was high-grade steel, and I had crushed it with my bare fingers. I shook the metal dust off my hands. "But he began, probably worried his enemies would target me. I cut him off. "Stop whining. From today on, your enemies are my enemies." Thud. Chu Feng dropped to his knees and kowtowed 3 times. "Disciple pays respects to master." "Ha ha! Rise, my disciple, rise." The weight in my chest finally lifted. Ding. "Congratulations, host. You have successfully recruited a disciple. Cultivation seal partially unlocked. Reward: Invincible Diamond Body and Eye of Truth. Disciple Chu Feng's Heavenly Tribulation Thunder Body activated. Special skill awarded: I am a little mushroom." My lips twitched frantically. System: Are you kidding me? What kind of name is "I am a little mushroom"? Ding. Whenever you crouch, cover your head, and say the phrase, "You enter absolute defense." Immune to all magic and untargetable. Holy crap, this cheat is insane. Give me that right now! I almost jumped with excitement, but the system ignored me. I cursed the stupid system in my head, but suddenly, my eyes flared with warmth. It vanished in a blink. Su Yao, entirely unfazed, just rolled her eyes at me. Chu Feng, however, looked completely baffled and waved his hand in front of my face. "Master, are you all right?" "Ah, fine. Totally fine." I quickly changed the subject. "Since you are official, let your senior sister help you pick out some initiation gifts." I winked at Su Yao. Hearing about weapons and cultivation techniques, his eyes lit up. But looking around my rundown shop, his face fell. What could this dump possibly have? Still, since he had already taken the oath, he had to accept his lot. "Wait," I whispered, leaning in with a mysterious grin. "Let me teach you a secret survival trick. If you ever face an unbeatable enemy, just crouch down, hold your head and yell, 'I am a little mushroom.' Do not move a muscle." Chu Feng froze in absolute shock. What kind of ridiculous spell was that? He resisted the urge to flip the table and forced a bow. "Thank you, master, for the teachings." I leaned back on my chair, watching them walk to the backyard. But as they passed the furnace, Chu Feng froze, staring at the black coal-bed stone. He was completely stunned. The stone sitting beneath the coal was actually radiating a faint starlight. Even his family's most prized treasure did not have a piece of this ore the size of a fingernail. His hands trembled. This was the legendary boundary-shaping star ore. He rushed to the furnace, staring at the glowing red rock in disbelief. My God. His voice shook as he pointed a trembling finger. Once he realized this was the legendary ore that could spark endless wars, his legs buckled and he dropped to his knees. Su Yao watched him, tilting her head like he had lost his mind. What was wrong with this guy? Chu Feng kept staring at the meteorite being used as a simple coal prop. His heart nearly stopped. If this leaked, the entire cultivation world would tear itself apart to get it. Yet here, it was just used to support burning coal. His temples throbbed, but he did not dare question me, so he grit his teeth and followed Su Yao. The moment she pushed open the storage room door, his scream practically blew the roof off. The room was packed with legendary weapons. They were piled up like a mountain of scrap metal. The ones on top were actually crackling with active lightning. Terrified, he fell to his knees again. Senior sister, he stammered, turning his head stiffly. Are these scrap metal? Su Yao kicked the pile impatiently. Duh. If we do not melt these down, are we supposed to go mining? Chu Feng almost choked on his own spit. Unbelievable. Melting down god-tier relics was just standard practice here. He shakily picked up a few weapons, his pupils shrinking with every single one. His pupils shrank in shock. The moment he saw that spear carved with the Nine Heavens dragon, sweat poured off him. His hands, holding it, shook like he had Parkinson's, literally shaking like crazy. Did Master actually rob the late Emperor's armory? Done choosing yet? Su Yao tapped the treasures scattered on the floor with her toe. Are we going to the manual room or what? Chu Feng clutched that dragon spear like a protective mother hen, only to see Su Yao carrying a dozen glowing golden scrolls right toward the fireplace. Terrified, he slid right in front of her. Senior sister, you can't do that. Su Yao rolled her eyes. Do you want roast rabbit or stewed goose tonight? With a rustle, she stuffed those heaven-grade manuals right into the furnace. The blazing flames lit up Chu Feng's pale, lifeless face. But the moment the manual room door creaked open, his eyes nearly popped out of his head. Peerless martial arts were plastered all over the walls like worthless scrap paper. And worst of all, a lost ancient formation map was being used to seal window drafts. He was actually plotting to steal a storage ring tonight to pack it all up. Just then, my lazy voice rang out behind him. Too many choices? My voice made him jump out of his skin and bow in panic. Master. Yeah, I don't think spears suit you. Lightning-based techniques are more your style, I said, rummaging through the paper pile like looking through trash. Understood, Master. Chu Feng nodded respectfully. To be honest, he didn't even like spears anyway. Heaven knows how miserable it was being forced by his family to train. Every swing felt like lifting weights. Ah, found it. I suddenly pulled a greasy, battered book from the junk. Sunlight hit it, making faint lightning serpents crackle, blinding Chu Feng. If this thing were put up for auction, it could probably buy half the cultivation world. I casually tossed it over. The second Chu Feng caught it. A loud boom echoed, slamming him flat. It was so heavy his bones nearly shattered. This wasn't a manual, it was a literal mountain of lightning. Right. Forgot to mention you need to bind it with a drop of blood first, I added lazily. The moment he pricked his finger, the battered book dissolved into lightning, shooting straight into his forehead. He pumped his fist, feeling like he could punch right through a sea-transforming stage expert's skull. Master, I think I'm invincible. Snap out of it. I slapped the back of his head. Getting cocky after just one technique? You think you're the god of thunder now? First thing the next morning, Chu Feng was busy sweating away in the blacksmith shop. Amidst the clanging, he caught a blinding purple light shining through my door crack. Driven by curiosity, he crept over and peeked inside. Good grief, a room full of top-grade spirit stones strewn across the floor like worthless pebbles. Even crazier, a 10,000-year demon core was being used as a simple nightlight. Of all my rooms, only this one was locked. Chu Feng's curiosity was killing him. But just as he leaned closer, I popped my head out with bedhead and stared at him. Did the sun rise from the west today? You're up earlier than a rooster. Chu Feng scratched his head, grinning like an idiot. Master, I swept the yard. I was just about to wake you. Well, aren't you diligent? I said, my eyes lighting up like I'd just found free labor. Come on, today I teach you how to forge. After a bit, he suddenly put down his hammer in shock. Master, something weird happened last night. He held up 3 fingers. I jumped from chi condensation level 1 to level 3. I didn't even look up mouth still full of meat bun. I just activated your special physique, that's all. No big deal. Activated my physique? Chu Feng almost choked on his tea. My casual tone made it sound like changing clothes. He couldn't help but ask Master, what's your actual cultivation level? Mortal. I mumbled around my bun. Chu Feng's mouth twitched, screaming in his head, "Yeah, right. What mortal casually activates ancient lightning physiques? You aren't even trying to make your lies believable. I want to head to the dark forest for some trial," he said, clenching his fists with pure determination. I slowly dusted off my hands. "Go ahead, just bring back 2 wild chickens." I tossed him a ragged sack. "We're having mushroom stew tonight." My casual attitude made it look like I was just sending him to buy cabbage. Some knots have to be untied by yourself to be satisfying. I squinted and tossed a butcher knife into the sack. Chu Feng's eyes lit up instantly. "Master, you're agreeing?" I waved my hand in disgust. "Just hurry back and cook when you're done." I sounded like a dad sending his kid to buy soy sauce. The dark forest was only 100 miles away, a quick stroll for cultivators, but deep inside the beasts were definitely no joke. Deep in the woods, Chu Feng knelt by a stream and splashed cold water onto his face. Blood and mud washed into the grass. Nearby lay a decapitated Gale wolf. "These outer perimeter beasts are way too weak," he muttered, tossing his hair and staring deeper into the forest. "Too many cultivators around here. It's like a busy market. There's no good loot left. I have to go deeper." With a light leap, he vanished into the dense trees. A flash of lightning burst from the treetops, startling countless birds. Chu Feng wiped the blood off his butcher knife, planning to practice his lightning technique when he returned. Right after he left, a pair of young cultivators arrived, landing near the dead wolf, his pupils shrinking. What terrifying lightning power! Killed in one blow. A red-dressed woman named Leng Qingchu kicked the severed wolf head with an annoyed expression. "Let's go. There's nothing to see here." "Yes, junior sister," the youth replied, standing up with a trace of hidden hesitation. In a flash, they vanished into the trees. Coincidentally, they were heading right where Chu Feng had gone. Back at the shop, Su Yao was skipping back from the market, but I suddenly squinted my eyes. 2 shady guys in bamboo hats were sneaking around my blacksmith shop, holding a dripping compass. "Hey, what are you doing lurking around?" I frowned and barked at them. They both snapped their heads toward me, and one of them stared at the glowing compass, sneering. "This old man has that little beast Chu Feng's scent on him." Hearing Chu Feng's name, my pupils shrank. These guys were definitely his enemies. Before I could even react, one of them pressed a gleaming scimitar against my neck. "Old man, where is Chu Feng?" His voice was cold enough to freeze water. "How dare you touch my brother Fan?" Su Yao rolled up her sleeves, her face flushed with fury as she prepared to charge. I quickly grabbed her. "Don't mess around. Too many eyes in this town." I turned to the men in black, flashing my most harmless smile. "Gentlemen, relax. I know exactly where Chu Feng is. Let me lead the way." The men in black stared, utterly bewildered immortal with 0 spiritual energy. Facing 2 Foundation establishment experts, could be this calm. But then again, what experts would live in this backwater? "Smart move, old man. Lead the way." Once we reached the barren hills, I stopped. "So, you're here to seek revenge on Chu Feng, right? You know too much." The guy with the scimitar lifted his hat, revealing a scarred face. "What? Planning to die with your precious disciple?" I cracked my wrists, a cold smile playing on my lips. They laughed like it was a joke doubled over in laughter. "Ha ha ha! You, a useless mortal with 0 spiritual energy?" I was thrilled. I was worried I might have the wrong guys, but now I had a perfect excuse to strike. I raised my hand and slapped the nearest guy's head down. "Mortal trash dares to fight?" The man in black sneered, raising his protective barrier to shock me into a blood mist. A crisp slap echoed, like squishing a tomato, and his head exploded on the spot, spraying blood all over his partner. His protective barrier was as flimsy as wet paper. The surviving man was so terrified he wet his pants. Shaking violently, he screamed, "What kind of mortal is this? This is a hidden old monster!" He spun around to flee. I spoke coldly. "You act tough, and now you want to run?" With a twitch of my lips, I threw another slap from a distance. A 3-meter deep crater was blasted into the ground, with the man mangled inside. I shook my hand and muttered, "This invincible Vajra body has decent power, but not being able to fly around with spells is annoying." Clasping my hands behind my back, I strolled home thinking, that brat's enemies are already here. I need to double his training workload. Meanwhile, on the other side, Chu Feng had just slain a pack of black armored boars. Covered in blood while collecting his loot, he gasped, "Chi condensation level 5. Feeling the surging lightning energy inside him, he thought, Master's technique is insane. He wondered if he should kill a few more beasts to bring back when he saw a large crowd of cultivators sprinting in the same direction. "Brother, what's happening ahead?" He grabbed a level 7 passerby. "A profound grade spiritual fruit has appeared. The passerby wanted to curse him out, but seeing Chu Feng's terrifying aura, he instantly chickened out. Profound grade, spiritual fruit. Chu Feng's eyes lit up. He stuffed the boar meat into his sack and joined the crowd. Perfect to bring back as dessert for master. Shortly after, Chu Feng squeezed to the very front. At the cliff's edge, a glowing 9-colored fruit stood out brilliantly. His eyes lit up. But strangely, though the cliff was crowded with cultivators, no one dared to step forward. Chu Feng held back too. Any idiot knows that spiritual treasures of this grade always have a terrifying guardian beast. Scanning the crowd, he saw most were level 7 rookies, with barely any foundation establishment experts. Should we move? The male cultivator beside Lung Qingqiu rubbed his hands excitedly asking. Lung Qingqiu squinted. What's the rush? Let's see what the guardian beast is first. Though calm on the outside, she was thrilled. Although her sect didn't lack resources, this 9-colored origin fruit was crucial to stabilize her newly awakened mystical maiden bloodline. Such top-grade fruit only appeared once a century. Wait, this girl in red looks a bit familiar, Chu Feng thought, glancing at Lung Qingqiu and taking a second look at her. Lung Qingqiu sensed his gaze and turned her cold face. Seeing a low-level rogue cultivator, she frowned. The male companion beside her flared up with anger. Where did this peasant come from? Daring to stare at my junior sister. Should I go gouge out his eyes? No need, Lung Qingqiu sneered. We can use him as cannon fodder to test the path later. His knuckles cracked, turning white as he stared at Chu Feng with pure malice. He had simped for her for so long. Today he had to show off and perform. A thunderous roar shook everyone. A hill-like shadow leaped out from the cliff. Looking closely, it was a golden thunder bear covered in electricity, radiating the terrifying pressure of the late Foundation establishment stage. How are we supposed to fight that? A few cowards immediately turned tail and ran. Lung Qingqiu squinted at the giant bear. Though only in the early Foundation establishment stage, her eyes held pure disdain. To the reincarnated goddess, a late-stage beast was just a brainless brute. Armed with her past life secrets, she could easily toy with this beast until it died. Meanwhile, Chu Feng was already plotting. Not bad. This bear paw would make a great tonic for master. His eyes, however, were locked on the fruit. He wanted to swipe both the fruit and the bear. The giant beast roared again, forcing the crowd back. It had guarded this spiritual fruit for 10 long years and would not yield. Junior sister, let me slay this beast for you. A male disciple stepped forward, bursting with confidence. This was his golden opportunity to show off in front of her. As the top genius of the outer sect, fighting above his level was child's play. This dumb bear was nothing. Lung Qingqiu simply gave a cold nod. I will leave it to you then, senior brother Zhao. Hearing this, he was instantly energized, charging forward with his sword. Boom! Man and beast collided at the edge of the cliff. The onlookers quickly realized something was wrong. Zhao was being utterly dominated, his proud sword skills failing to even scratch the bear's thick hide. Panic set in. I am the top disciple. Why can't I pierce its defense? In sheer rage, he roared. I will kill you! But a second later, a blood-curdling shriek echoed through the valley. Junior sister, save me! His prized sword was shattered to pieces by a single blow. Yet, Lung Qingqiu watched on, her expression completely frozen. She had no intention of helping, treating his life like a dying dog's. The struggle ended instantly as Zhao's screams fell silent, replaced only by the bear's furious roars. His body was turned to mush, leaving the surrounding cultivators pale with terror. Chu Feng turned his gaze back to Lung Qingqiu, his brow furrowing deeply. He had initially found her cold elegance attractive, but now she just seemed downright monstrous. Leaving her own companion to die was pure evil. Facing the terrified stares, Lung Qingqiu remained entirely unbothered. To her, a useless simp's death was meaningless. How could he compare to a reincarnated goddess? Tasting blood, the thunder bear roared to the heavens and charged straight at the panicked crowd. The cultivators scattered like startled rabbits. Amidst the chaos, only Lung Qingqiu and Chu Feng stood completely still. Suddenly, with a sharp swoosh, both bolted simultaneously. But their target was not the roaring beast. They were heading straight for the 9-colored spiritual fruit on the cliff. Lung Qingqiu's eyes narrowed. This rogue cultivator's lightning step was incredibly fast. Channeling her past life's power, a red lotus bloomed beneath her feet, launching her forward. Just as their fingers neared the prize, the crazed bear noticed. It abandoned its meal and lunged back. Just as they were about to touch the fruit, a massive lightning-clad paw slammed down like a falling mountain, sending rocks flying. As the beast's gaping jaw loomed, Lung Qingqiu suddenly fainted and retreated. Chu Feng froze, his face darkening as he realized her scheme. What a perfect play to let the beast do her dirty work. Lung Qingchu smirked. Though her physical body was only 17, her soul was ancient. Chu Feng's speed was nothing to her. She had planned this perfectly. Once the bear crushed him, she would calmly harvest the fruit during the distraction. But the beast cared nothing for plans. Roaring as its massive paw crashed down on Chu Feng, Chu Feng scrambled to block with his rusty meat cleaver. Seeing the broken metal, the bear's eyes flashed with disdain. But with a dark flash, instead of shattered bones, the blade sliced through like butter. The giant bear looked down at its severed right paw, completely stunned. A split second later, a deafening shriek of pure agony echoed through the valley. Driven mad by the pain, the beast grew cautious. It stopped charging and unleashed its lightning, conjuring countless lightning spears aimed at Chu Feng. The boy danced through the electrical storm, spinning his cleaver into an impenetrable shield. Every bolt that touched the blade dissolved into light. Shockingly, he was actually absorbing the lightning. Terrified, the bear suddenly spun around to swallow the fruit. If it couldn't win, it would destroy the prize. Chu Feng blurred into a lightning afterimage, rushing forward. Stop! Lung Qingchu finally lost her icy composure, unleashing a storm of red lotus sword chi striking forward. Their dual attacks crossed, and the giant bear collapsed without even a whimper. Neither of them spared the beast a second glance as both of their hands lunged for the spiritual fruit simultaneously. Lung Qingchu's eyes flashed with a cold light as her sword pivoted toward Chu Feng's throat. But the moment their blades collided, her priceless Earth-grade weapon suffered a massive chip. The expression of this supposedly legendary reincarnated goddess shattered into disbelief. Was that rusty kitchen knife a divine weapon? In a flash, she struck with ghostly speed, thrusting an ice-clad palm toward Chu Feng's chest. But the youth stood his ground, meeting her strike head-on, his left fist crackling with destructive purple lightning. Bang! The explosion sent Leng Qingchu flying like a broken kite. She crashed hard into the dirt, her face a mask of absolute horror. Even Chu Feng looked down at his own hand in disbelief. Did Master's technique really just do that? He muttered. Impossible! Leng Qingchu shrieked, scrambling to her feet. Her hair was a mess, her fairy-like poise utterly shattered. Gritting her teeth, she looked exactly like a gambler who had lost everything. Chu Feng just rolled his eyes, bent down, and uprooted the entire tree. Leng Qingchu lost her mind, screaming as she lunged forward. Put it down, that is mine. Shoving the tree into a sack, the boy walked away, ignoring her hysterical shrieks. She spat out furious curses, but he did not even slow his pace. Leng Qingchu rose unsteadily, her face pale as death. Yet a terrifying aura of absolute zero erupted around her. Chu Feng spun around, his pupils shrinking instantly. This crazy woman was actually burning her essence blood to force a forbidden spell from her past life. Boom! An icy shockwave exploded as her power surged to the golden core threshold, turning nearby trees to solid ice. Her eyes glowed with an eerie blue light. Going all out, are we? Chu Feng muttered. Forcing past life power like that will kill you. Lung Qingchu wiped the blood from her chin, sneering. A tiny price to pay. She tilted her chin up arrogantly, demanding hand over the fruit and kneel as my slave, and I might spare you. Chu Feng laughed in amusement. Does this fruit have your name on it? A fake golden core is nothing. He cracked his knuckles. Let's see you survive this. In a flash, Lung Qingchu materialized like a ghost, raining ice spikes toward his vitals. She was determined to impale this arrogant rogue, but as his cleaver clashed against the ice, a violent burst of purple lightning exploded from him, sending her flying like a rag doll. She crashed through 3 trees before stopping. Chu Feng stumbled back 10 paces, his hands split and bleeding from the impact. The destruction lightning body. Lung Qingchu gasped, scrambling up from the frozen ground, her arrogance entirely replaced by shock. Chu Feng shook the blood from his hand with a cold smirk. So you actually recognize it. Lung Qingchu suddenly changed her tone, speaking coaxingly. Join my sect. I will teach you the ultimate lightning arts. She wiped her mouth, a fanatic light in her eyes. It is 1,000 times better than fumbling in the dark alone. Chu Feng chuckled. Any trash book my master throws away beats your sect's finest treasures. Lung Qingchu cut him off. Ignorance. In my past life, I was a goddess. Just shut up, Chu Feng snapped, turning to walk away. Keep talking and I will bleed you with this cleaver. He wanted nothing to do with this crazy woman, leaving her trembling in absolute rage. Think carefully. My guidance is the blessing of 8 lifetimes, she screamed, her voice cracking with fury. But Chu Feng kept walking, carrying his sack without looking back. Leng Qingchu finally cracked, stamping her feet in sheer desperation. That fruit is extremely important to me. Do I look like I care? Chu Feng threw up a middle finger without looking back. What is your name? Lung Qingqiu suddenly grew quiet, her eyes flashing with a venomous, calculating light. Chu Feng completely ignored her. Suddenly, his ears twitched. What was that? The ground trembled violently as a world-shaking roar echoed from the distance. The shockwave nearly knocked them off their feet. Leng Qingqiu paled. A golden core beast? How could a monster like that be in the outer forest? Then she looked at the dead bear, and the truth hit them. They had beaten the cub, and now the parent was here. A hill-sized purple-winged thunder lion roared out, burning with pure rage. Smelling blood, it roared, unleashing an electrical field that vaporized the surrounding trees. We are dead, Chu Feng muttered, cold sweat drenching his back. They had just poked a massive hornet's nest of lightning. Lung Qingqiu had already backed away. She crushed a life-saving talisman, vanishing in a flash of crimson light. Leaving Chu Feng behind, her pale face disappeared. You absolute snake. Chu Feng screamed, realizing he had been totally abandoned. As the lion's massive, lightning-charged paw descended toward his head, he closed his eyes in despair. At this final moment, his master's annoying face popped into his mind. Gritting her teeth, Chu Feng decided to gamble. He tossed his blade, squatted down, threw his hands over his head, and screamed at the top of his lungs, I am a little mushroom. Boom! The massive paw brushed past his hair, smashing into the ground beside him and blasting a massive crater. Dirt and sparks exploded everywhere. Chu Feng peeked through his fingers, swallowing hard. This ridiculous spell actually worked. The lion stared blankly at its own paw, completely baffled. Refusing to believe its eyes, it raised its leg for another strike. But the massive bolt of lightning seemed to hit an invisible insulator. Every single strike precisely curved around Chu Feng, blasting the empty ground instead. My master is a god! Chu Feng cheered. This was better than any armor. The beast went entirely wild, spamming devastating ultimate moves like they cost nothing. The earth shook, and the entire forest was flattened. After half an hour of non-stop attacks, the exhausted beast panted, its tongue hanging out as it stared. Looking like he'd seen a ghost. Tired of fighting? Chu Feng carefully kept his hands over his head, shimmying backward. Then I'm out of here. The thunder lion's tail whipped through the air. I'm a little mushroom. Boom. Another unlucky hilltop got blasted. That thunder lion learned its lesson. It just lay there, staring dead at this squatting weirdo. Man and beast stared each other down from midnight to dawn. Chu Feng cursed inwardly. Does this damn beast want to wait here forever? Forever? Their eyes were about to pop. Chu Feng's legs were numb, his mind screaming, is this giant crazy? That woman caused this, so why am I stuck playing mushroom? He glared at the beast, grinding his teeth. Be reasonable. I didn't kill your cub. Thinking of that woman who ran faster than a dog, Chu Feng ground his teeth to dust. The lion ignored him, searchlight eyes locked onto him, gritting his teeth. Let's fight. Before his voice faded, he sprang up and bolted toward the forest exit. Boom! A lightning bolt slammed down, nearly scraping his heels. Terrified, Chu Feng braked hard and squatted, grabbing his head again. I'm a little mushroom. Unbelievable. Watching the destructive strike miss again, Chu Feng grinned. I was too terrified last night, just freezing in place. Now, as long as I'm not embarrassed, you're the one who's awkward. Next, it was like playing Super Mario. Chu Feng would run a few steps, then squat like a mushroom. The lion's attacks missed precisely every time. As he neared the forest edge, the beast howled in frustration. What? Want to come back to the blacksmith shop and forge iron? Standing on the boundary, Chu Feng smugly patted his butt. The lion's claws ripped deep grooves into the ground, hesitating to chase. Suddenly, a heavy sigh echoed from deep in the forest. The hairs on Chu Feng's back stood on end. The sound wasn't loud, but it made his heart feel squeezed by a freezing hand. The lion whimpered, tucked its tail, and fled back into the woods. Chu Feng's heart skipped a beat. Time to go. He immediately took off, sprinting down the mountain until he saw the blacksmith shop's chimney before daring to breathe. Clutching his growling stomach, he burst into the yard. The kid was finally back. My eyes lit up. He was carrying a heavy sack, walking up to me with deep respect and bowed. Master, your disciple brought back some local specialties. Awesome. I rubbed my hands excitedly. As expected of my Lin fans, great disciple. Look at these bear paws. Pure collagen. Chu Feng quickly added, Master. I even uprooted that glowing fruit tree for you. I nodded happily. Perfect for shade in this heat. I rolled up my sleeves to start cooking. Late that night, Chu Feng sat cultivating in the woodshed, His cultivation skyrocketed from 5th level chi condensation straight to early foundation establishment. Terrified, he stopped. This technique is insane. I must ask Master tomorrow. But as he lay down, a creepy sword chiming rang in his ear. Chu Feng bolted upright, cold sweat drenching his back. The chiming pierced his soul, freezing him solid. He watched in horror as his body moved uncontrollably toward the storage room. He desperately tried to scream for help, but his throat was bone dry. Not a sound came out. Hair standing on end, he watched his feet step forward in despair. Seeing himself heading toward the room with 3 locks, his pupils shrunk to pinpricks. Could a peerless sword have sneaked into the blacksmith shop? But with a hidden expert like Master here, who would dare seek death? Even worse, that terrifying chiming was coming from inside that locked room. He struggled desperately to regain control, but remained motionless. Meanwhile, I was fast asleep, sprawled out and drooling, probably dreaming of endless spirit stones. Su Yao was shivering like a leaf under her blanket. Finally breaking, she rushed into my room, grabbing my arm and shaking it. "Brother Fan, wake up! That chest is screaming again." I rubbed my eyes. What's the noise in the middle of the night? Su Yao was pale. "It's the sword box in the locked room." "Listen." I sat up and listened. Sure enough, there was a sharp buzzing. My face darkened. "Damn it, was chopping firewood with you last time not enough? How dare you ruin my beauty sleep?" I furiously kicked open my door and collided with a sleepwalking Chu Feng. He scrambled to my feet like I was his lifesaver. "Master, there's something in that room. It controlled my body. Out of line." I rolled up my sleeves and pulled out the keys. Su Yao and Chu Feng hid behind me, shivering. I kicked open the door. A dusty bronze sword box stood alone inside. The creepy buzzing stopped. "Scream! Why did you stop? Keep going!" I raised my leg and booted the sword box. The clattering shook the whole room. Chu Feng stared blankly, never expecting his profound master to act like a street thug. Strangely, the box actually wobbled, looking aggrieved, but no matter how I kicked, it stayed silent. "Play ghost at night again and I'll toss you into the latrine." Cursing, I locked the door, yawning as I headed back to sleep. Chu Feng stood there questioning life, while Su Yao, completely unfazed, yawned and went to bed. Inside the box, the ancient ominous sword with a spirit curled up in the corner, aggrieved. It had only wanted a sniff of that premium lightning body. At dawn, Chu Feng got up quietly to start the forge. Passing the locked room, he pressed himself against the opposite wall. Last night's shadow was massive. He had a million questions, but new master would tell him when ready. Meanwhile, I, sporting a messy bedhead, strolled into the yard yawning. Su Yao followed with dark panda eyes, clearly still shaken. "Morning, master," Chu Feng greeted, setting the table as the bear paw soup steamed richly. "Having a disciple was awesome." I took a sip happily. "Right, yesterday 2 guys in black with scimitars tried to target you. I casually slapped them into paste." Chu Feng's chopsticks clattered to the table, his fists clenching tightly. Seeing my concerned look, he suppressed his killing intent. "Your disciple caused trouble for master?" His voice rasped. "Drop the polite nonsense." I dropped meat into his bowl. "If a master doesn't protect his disciple, who will?" I saw his Adam's apple bob as he buried his face in his bowl, eating furiously to hide his red eyes. Finally, he mumbled, "Master, since I'm cultivating so fast, will my foundation be unstable, or will I suffer chi deviation? You have the nirvana lightning body. Just temper yourself with thunder." I waved my greasy hand. "Just cultivating is useless. Let's wipe out their lair for practice later." I tossed him a 9-colored fruit. He hesitated, but I pushed his hand back. "Eat it as dessert. It's less potent than liquor to me." Afterward, Su Yao actually dared to hop around the locked room, making Chu Feng's eyelids twitch. I lazily lay by the door, sunbathing, happily watching my disciple work. I was planning tonight's side dishes when the system suddenly spoke. "Super quality disciple detected. Please claim immediately." I sprang up with a kip up just as the street was completely empty. Suddenly, a huge boom shook the air. Dust swirled everywhere. I stared dumbfounded at a massive crater in the yard, where a bloody girl lay. I muttered to myself, "This delivery is too hardcore," dropping her straight from the sky. The girl struggled to look up, seeing us around the crater. She drew a broken sword, glaring like a cornered leopard. "What do you want?" Seeing her about to collapse, Chu Feng asked, "Master, should I fetch water?" I quickly winked at Su Yao. "Yao Yao, help her in." Su Yao understood, hopping into the pit to carry her up with ease. The girl's pupils shrunk, sizing me up strangely. She likely wondered how a mortal blacksmith without spirit energy could have such strong disciples. Don't look so grim. Sit. I offered an iron stool, smiling warmly. The girl, Mu Shui, hesitated before thanking me, though she gripped her broken sword tighter, extremely vigilant. Chu Feng brought water. She took the cup, white-knuckled, but didn't drink a drop. I thought to myself, this girl is incredibly guarded. I half-jokingly asked, how did you fall from the sky? Did you fly a sword without a license? Mu Shui snorted coldly. I was betrayed by my own senior sister. I dramatically looked around. She spoke coldly. Don't bother. My pursuers are hundreds of miles away. It turns out Mu Shui was a genius of the Qingyun sword sect, but the sect master's daughter stole her innate sword bone and hunted her. She barely escaped, but exhausted and heavily injured, she plummeted from the sky. The cultivation world is dark. Luckily, the system had already revealed her entire history to me. Miss Mu, how about taking me as your master? On a whim, I tossed my sweat rag aside, startling Chu Feng into dropping his teapot. Su Yao beamed. Finally, a junior sister! But Mu Shui gasped in disbelief. How do you know my surname? Just say if you'll join or not, I asked. Her nails dug into her skin in conflict. She couldn't fathom how a mortal blacksmith knew her secrets, with a foundation establishment disciple serving him. Master is awesome, Chu Feng quickly chimed in. His fanatic look pleased me. All right. Mu Shui finally nodded, figuring her life was cheap now anyway. It didn't matter who her master was. From today, you are my Lin Fan's third disciple. I pointed at Su Yao and Chu Feng, your eldest sister and second brother. Mu Shui bowed formally, but when she looked at Su Yao, she froze. Such a kid was eldest sister? Hello, junior sister. Su Yao put her hands behind her back, acting mature, making us laugh. Strength rules here, not age. I told Su Yao to help Mu Shui wash up, and she eagerly dragged her. They ran inside like kids with a new toy. Ding. Congrats on your third disciple. Reward pack. Diamond body upgraded to primordial chaos body, absolute defense unlocked, and Mu Shui gets Nirvana 9-cycle swordbone. What is this back-off skill? I stared at the glowing system panel and frowned. Chaos body sounded epic, but absolute defense was too basic. I tried activating it, but not even a single halo popped up. It was like nothing happened. I wondered if this was a cheap scam. System, get out here. What does this actually do? Ding. Absolute defense is passive. No activation needed. It ignores all laws, granting total immunity to all damage. And it reflects 100% of physical impact. Okay, that sounds pretty cool. But what about Mu Shui's back-off skill? Ding. Put hands on hips, step forward, and yell. Back off 3 times to repel any form of attack. Repels any enemy regardless of level within 10 miles. My mouth twitched. So it is just a forced displacement skill? These rewards are so random. It has a total middle-aged street dancer vibe. While complaining, I saw a clean Mu Shui step out. She had changed into simple clothes, but her icy aura was still unmistakable. Standing there like a walking iceberg, she literally cooled down the entire yard. I looked at my brand new disciple and asked how she was feeling. I reattached your sword bone just now. Mu Shui froze in shock. Beside her, Chu Feng was practically jumping with excitement. Junior sister, try it. Our master's gifts are always absolutely insane. She closed her eyes skeptically. Suddenly, her body shook as a pillar of sword intent blasted into the sky. My sword bone is back, and it is stronger. She stared at me like I was a ghost. I casually waved it off. Just basic stuff. Let me teach you a life-saving move. Put hands on hips, step forward, and yell. Back off 3 times. Mu Shui froze, her icy expression cracking instantly. Chu Feng rubbed his hands in excitement. Master, let me spar with her to test it. Let's go, I said, leading them to the backyard. Passing the locked room, I noticed Mu Shui staring at it with curiosity. Out back, Chu Feng took a stance. Junior sister, show me what you got. Mu Shui hesitated, but after I nodded, she whispered, Forgive me, senior brother. Instantly, she blurred into motion. She dashed at him like a shadow. I knew she held back, fearing she would hurt her goofy senior brother. But suddenly, Chu Feng squatted, hugged his head, and screamed. I am a little mushroom. I face-palmed. This idiot disciple only used his techniques for memes. Mu Shui lunged forward. But right before her fingers touched his shirt, her sharp sword chi weirdly bent, blasting a massive crater into the dirt. Gravel grazed past Chu Feng's legs. Refusing to believe it, Mu Shui gathered more spiritual energy and struck again. This time, The sword Qi made a sharp 90-degree turn, obliterating a nearby tree instead. Chu Feng, still squatting, grinned. Is my mushroom shield awesome, or what? I watched, highly entertained. This skill literally threw the laws of physics out the window. Beside us, Su Yao clapped, her eyes sparkling. My turn! My turn! Su Yao cheered. Chu Feng stood up, rubbing his hands. Junior sister, show us your back-off ultimate. I noticed Mu Shue's ears flush red instantly. Her mouth twitched. How could an icy beauty do such an incredibly embarrassing move? She shot me a pleading look, but I just grinned at Chu Feng. Hey, you better use full power for this one. He channeled his energy, lightning crackling as his fist lunged at her. Cornered, Mu Shue closed her eyes, put hands on hips, stepped forward, and screamed, Back off! Back off! Back off! Right before our eyes, Chu Feng was hit like a speeding bullet train. He blasted backward 10 times faster, drawing a perfect arc through the air, and flew straight past the town borders. The yard fell dead silent. Su Yao's jaw dropped, her half-eaten cucumber hitting the ground. Mu Shui stared at her own hands in sheer disbelief. I swallowed hard. What kind of logic is this? This is a human cannon. After a half hour, Chu Feng staggered back, covered in dirt with hair like a bird's nest. He looked at her with pure terror. Sister, I almost met my ancestors. Mu Shui blushed, whispering an apology. I burst out laughing. All right, this is our blacksmith shop's signature show now. Great job, everyone. Tonight, we feast on roasted bear paw. The next few days went back to normal. Every morning, I forged with Chu Feng, Su Yao cooked, and Mu Shui chopped wood. But that rusty axe she used was actually a fragment of the ancient sky-cleaving axe, tempering her bone with every swing. At first, the genius sword cultivator felt insulted doing chores. But when she realized her energy was 10 times purer and her sword bone was glowing gold, she chopped wood faster than anyone. She even skipped sleep, nearly turning every log into toothpicks. One afternoon, while Chu Feng forged shirtless and sweaty, I relaxed on my chair, sipping spiritual tea brewed by Su Yao. Life was good. Suddenly, our wooden door was kicked open with a loud bang. The door flew in, smashing against the anvil as sparks flew. I sat up, frowning. Who has the audacity to smash my door? Several people in green robes stood there. The leader was a rat-faced man oozing golden core pressure. Behind him stood a snobbish girl in lavish robes, holding a glowing sword. Trouble had arrived. The moment Mu Shui saw the girl, her axe froze. Her body shook, her eyes turning red as she hissed, Lu Ruyan. This was the vile woman who had stolen her sword bone. The young sect master, Lu Ruyan, sneered at our rundown yard. Her eyes landed on Mu Shui, and she laughed. I wondered where you ran off to. Turns out you're hiding in this dump. Playing maid in a blacksmith shop? Life must be tough without your sword bone. Mu Shui shook with rage, lifting her axe. Chu Feng stepped in front of her, holding a glowing hot hammer. Who do you think you are, causing trouble on my master's turf? The elder scoffed. Mortal trash. I am the Qingyun sect elder, here for our traitor, Mu Shui. Hand her over now, or we flatten this place. I smiled, slowly getting up to brush off the dust. Never heard of your sect. But once someone is in my shop, they're mine. Let's talk about my broken door. The elder laughed. A mortal ant demanding cash from a golden core cultivator? His eyes turned icy, slashing a wave of sharp sword Qi right at my face. Master, look out! Chu Feng screamed. He jumped in front of me, ducked, and yelled, I am a little mushroom. The lethal sword Qi slammed into invisible air a foot away from him. Dissolving instantly without even a ripple, it vanished completely. The intruders froze in shock. Lu Ruyan gasped. How is this possible? That attack didn't even scratch his clothes. Elder Wang stared blankly, unable to believe his own eyes. A golden core strike, neutralized by a squat. Chu Feng grinned from the ground. That's it? Didn't even tickle. Furious, Elder Wang drew his sword, lunging forward like a streak of green light. This was his sect's ultimate technique, unavoidable and deadly. Chu Feng knew it was strong, but he simply stayed squatted, holding his head. With a massive boom, the sword slammed right into him. But a bizarre thing happened. Elder Wang felt his sword strike an immovable mountain. A massive recoil surged up the blade, and with a sharp crack, his proud weapon shattered to pieces. His spiritual sword exploded into shards. Coughing blood, Elder Wang flew backward, his eyes wide with horror. What sorcery is this? Lu Ruyan backed away, terrified, as Chu Feng stood up calmly. My master's mushroom shield is invincible, Chu Feng bragged. I nodded, pleased with my silly disciple. Watching this, tears filled Mu Shui's eyes. She had never been protected like this before. Back in her old sect, everyone plotted against her. No one had ever shielded her like this. Chu Feng glared at Liu Ruan. You stole her sword bone. Don't expect to leave in one piece. She shrieked, touch me and my father, a nascent soul expert, will destroy you all. I picked my ear, strolled over to Chu Feng, and snatched the rusty hammer from his hand. Disciple, why waste breath? Just smash them. I weighed the hammer, looking at Liu Ruyan. Is your nascent soul dad supposed to scare me? Let me teach you some manners. She backed away, drawing her glowing sword. Stay back. This is a heaven-grade weapon. I can kill a mortal in a second. I ignored her threats and swung my rusty hammer down. She raised her sword in terror. Clang! Under everyone's shocked gazes, her legendary heaven-grade blade shattered like cheap glass against my rusty forging hammer, exploding into countless tiny fragments. The hammer's momentum did not fade, crushing straight down her arm. With a bang, Liu Ruyan screamed and fell to her knees, her right hand completely shattered. Her proud cultivation was instantly destroyed under my single strike. The entire crowd fell dead silent. Elder Wang lay trembling on the ground, too terrified to even breathe. A mortal shattering a heaven-grade soul sword and ruining a genius with a hammer? This was no mortal, it was a monster. Mu Shui stared blankly at me, tears finally spilling down her face. She thought she could never avenge herself. Yet, her master's casual blow dragged her untouchable enemy into the dirt. I tossed the iron hammer to Chu Feng and looked at her. Go, settle the rest yourself. Mu Shui inhaled deeply and wiped her tears. Clutching her rusty axe, she walked toward Liu Ruan. The once proud genius was now crawling back in terror, screaming, Do not come near. I will return your sword bone. Just spare me. But her gaze was ice cold. My sword bone was already remade by master. I find your filthy bone disgusting. You stole my bone and severed my path. Today, I break your meridians and end yours. She swung the axe down. Liu Ruyan shrieked like a slaughtered pig, completely ruined. Seeing this, Elder Wang knew he had to run. He tried to crawl out of our courtyard. I sneered. Trying to run? You haven't even paid for my door yet. I grabbed a piece of the shattered door and flung it. It slammed into his back, making him spit blood and pass out cold. Throw those two garbage pieces out. Do not let them dirty our yard. I yawned, turning back inside to finish my afternoon nap. Chu Feng dragged them out like wet chickens, dumping them onto the street as onlookers stared. Meanwhile, Mu Shui stood in the courtyard. She stared at my back, suddenly dropping to her knees to kowtow 3 times. Master, I will never forget your massive kindness. My life belongs to you now. I waved my hand without looking back. Just chop your wood, do not slack off, and eat less at dinner. Honestly, inside I was absolutely thrilled. That flex was a perfect 10 out of 10. If I was not worried about breaking my mysterious character, I would have cheered. That night, Su Yao cooked a massive goose stewed with 100-year-old herbs. The aroma filled the street. The 4 of us gathered around the stone table and feasted. Though Mu Shui elegantly, her chopsticks moved lightning fast. She had clearly let go of her past and embraced our bizarre blacksmith family. While eating, I casually mentioned the Tiangshuan sect's upcoming disciple recruitment ceremony. It is starting soon, so things will be lively. Let us go join the crowd and buy some premium iron ore. Chu Feng's eyes immediately lit up. Master, are you looking for more disciples? I glared at him. More disciples? Having the 3 of you is already enough. I am just going to see if there are any cheap crystals. Chu Feng scratched his head, grinning like an idiot. Mu Shui remained thoughtful. She knew the Tianshuan sect held massive power here, and that the reincarnated goddess, Lung Qingchu, belonged to them. Thinking of her, I recalled stopping her on the street. The girl was as proud as a peacock. Who knew if we would run into her? Not that it mattered. As long as she stayed away, I did not care. After dinner, we slept. But late that night, my locked storage room started acting up again. That old bronze sword casket was buzzing. And this time, it was vibrating so hard the door shook. I tossed and turned, absolutely furious. Is this broken piece of metal ever going to stop? Do you think I have an endless supply of patience? I threw on my clothes and stomped outside. Chu Feng and Mu Shui were already standing in the courtyard, staring at the door with grave expressions. Master, is there some ancient, terrifying demon sealed inside? Chu Feng whispered. Demon my ass. Just an annoying piece of scrap metal. I pulled out my keys and unlocked the door. The sword casket was shaking violently, glowing with a deep crimson light. A terrifying, blood-red aura was desperately clawing to break the ancient seal. Mu Shui stared in absolute shock, her eyes wide. Such terrifying sword intent, master. What kind of weapon is locked in there? I walked over and kicked the casket hard. Quiet down. People are trying to sleep. Keep making noise, and I will melt you into farm tools tomorrow. Miraculously, the red light flickered, and the casket actually went dead silent. However, that thick, ominous aura still lingered in the room. Chu Feng and Mu Shui stood there, completely dumbfounded. A legendary, ancient evil sword, completely tamed by my single kick. Just how deep and unfathomable was my power. I yawned and locked the door back up. Stop staring. Go back to sleep. We have work early tomorrow. The two bowed respectfully and left, their eyes practically glowing with worship. Over the next few days, they quietly continued their daily blacksmithing under my guidance, and wood chopping. Yet their cultivation grew by leaps and bounds. Chu Feng's thunder physique became incredibly refined. Doan strike of his hammer sent purple electricity crackling from the forge. Mu Shui's legendary sword bone was also taking shape, even though she still used that dull axe. But every single swing carried a faint, space-tearing sword intent. Su Yao kept cooking delicious feasts with top-tier herbs, like 1,000-year ginseng ribs and 10,000-year snow lotus porridge. She fed us so well our bodies became monstrously strong. Finally, the day arrived. It was the day of the Tianquan sect's grand recruitment ceremony. The entire town was packed shoulder to shoulder with young geniuses and rogue cultivators, all looking for a path forward. I led my 3 disciples, pushing a squeaky wooden cart right into the busy market. The cart was piled high with farming tools and handmade iron pots. Supposedly, we were here to sell wares, but really, we just wanted to watch the drama and buy iron ore. Master, the Tianquan sect is incredibly grand, Chu Feng remarked, staring at their plaza. Staring at the white jade plaza, Mu Shui scoffed. What is the point of being big? They are just a bunch of hypocrites. She never liked these righteous sects. I leaned against my cart, chewing on a blade of grass. Ignore them. We sell our pots. 5 low-grade spirit stones each. No bargaining. Just as we set up our stall and prepared for business, a sneering voice cut through the air. Where did these country bumpkins come from? How dare you set up a stall under the Tianquan sect's gates to sell this garbage? We slowly looked up. A few young men wearing Tianquan sect disciple robes were marching over arrogantly. The leader was the very cultivator Lung Qingchu had used as a meat shield in the dark forest. I was surprised he had survived that thunder bear. Although he was walking with a heavy limp, he looked pretty badly hurt. Chu Feng recognized him instantly, his eyes turning ice cold. Well, look who it is. Senior brother Zhao, who ran faster than a rabbit. Why are you out here barking with a ruined leg? The young man froze when he saw Chu Feng. Then, his face twisted with rage. It is you, that shameless rogue cultivator. You stole our spiritual fruit and almost got me killed by that beast. Since you were stupid enough to come to our sect territory today, do not dream of leaving alive. His companions quickly drew their swords, surrounding us. The crowd quickly backed away, terrified of getting dragged into the conflict. I did not even glance at them, focusing on arranging my iron pots. Want to buy a pot? If not, stop blocking my business. Hey, old man, you are looking for death. One disciple swung his sword at my stall, trying to slice my iron pots in half. I sat calmly on my small stool, not moving an inch. Chu Feng sneered, reaching out and grabbing the falling blade with his bare hand. With a sharp crack, the disciple's steel sword was crushed to pieces by Chu Feng's bare hand. What? The disciple retreated in horror. Chu Feng casually dusted off his hands, showing off this cheap trash in front of my master. Senior brother Zhao's eyes nearly popped out. He had personally witnessed Chu Feng's terrifying strength in the forest and knew they stood no chance. He gnashed his teeth, glaring at us. Just you wait. Do not run away. He then led his disciples running back to the sect gates. Mu Shui frowned. Master, we have angered the Tianquan sect. This could bring us trouble. I yawned. Trouble? I, Lin Fan, have never been afraid of trouble. I am keeping my stall right here today, and we will see who dares to kick me out. Sure enough, a massive crowd of disciples soon rushed out from the gates. Leading them was a white-haired elder, emitting the terrifying pressure of a nascent soul cultivator. He was an outer elder of the sect. Following closely behind him was senior brother Zhao, alongside a familiar figure in a red dress. Cold and proud it was Lung Qingchu. Chu Feng spotted Lung Qingchu, and a flash of murder crossed his eyes. Master, that is the woman who plotted against us. I squinted. Well, look, an old acquaintance. Lung Qingchu noticed us as well. her cold gaze sweeping over me with a sudden flash of disdain before locking on to Chu Feng. Kid, you escaped last time. Since you walked into our trap today, hand over the 9-colored origin fruit. I leaned back lazily on my stool. We already stewed that fruit into soup. If you really want it, my disciple might still have some leftovers. Want it? The surrounding crowd gasped in shock at my words. Was this mortal blacksmith insane? How did he dare to speak like that to an elder and a reincarnated goddess? Leng Qingqiu's face turned pale with anger. Impudent fool, wasting such a precious treasure. That fruit is incredibly rare, and you used it for soup? Wasting it? I sneered. My disciple risked his life to get that item. We can eat it however we want. It is none of your business. The sect elder bellowed in rage. What an arrogant mortal. Today, I will enforce justice for heaven and teach you fools a lesson. He raised his hand and struck. A massive spiritual palm appeared in midair, hurtling toward our stall with enough power to collapse a mountain range. If that strike landed, it would not just kill, it would leave a massive crater in the ground. Chu Feng roared, stepping forward to block it. Mu Shui drew her dull axe, while Su Yao directly grabbed a heavy iron wok to fight back. At that critical second, I slowly stood up, holding a worn-out fan used for keeping cool. Facing the massive glowing palm, I waved my fan casually as if shooing away a fly. With a deafening boom, the terrifying, world-destroying blast of spiritual energy completely vanished into thin air. Not only that, but a violent storm-force wind erupted from the fan, blasting the outer elder away. The old man sprayed blood in midair, slamming heavily into the archway at the entrance of the Tianquan sect's mountain. He cracked the solid white jade archway. The entire place fell dead silent. Everyone looked at me as if I was a monster. A mortal with a broken fan blowing away a nascent soul powerhouse in one swipe? Was this some kind of ridiculous dream? Leng Qingqiu was completely dumbfounded. Her eternally frozen face was now filled with shock and fear. She finally understood why I told her that becoming my disciple was a massive steal. This was no weak, powerless Mortalthus, was definitely a powerful, reclusive master. Who on earth are you? Leng Qingqiu asked in a trembling voice. I tucked the fan into my belt and shrugged. Did I not tell you? I am just a blacksmith selling pots. 5 low-grade spirit stones each. Want to buy some for your sect's kitchen? Qingqiu bit her lip, her eyes flashing. Ignoring the crowd's stares, she stepped forward and bowed deeply to me. Senior, you hide your strength well. Please forgive my past ignorance. Would you be willing to join our Tianquan sect as a guest elder? I want to study under you as your disciple. The crowd erupted. The proud reincarnation of the legendary goddess of the 9 underworlds was actually begging a simple blacksmith to be her master. Looking at her calculating face, I sneered inside. Now that she knows I'm powerful, she wants to cling to my coattails? Too late. I curled my lip. Sorry, but when I take disciples, I look at their faces. Frankly, you're too ugly for our shop's aesthetic. Leng Qingqiu shook with rage. No one had ever called her ugly before. What a humiliation. Just as she was about to snap, deep inside the sect, a deep bell chimed. Several incredibly powerful auras shot into the sky from the peaks, heading straight for the gate. Oh no! It's the Grand Elders of the Tianquan sect! The crowd scrambled back in panic. I looked up at the sky at those dazzling lights, mentally rolling my eyes. Beat the kid, the old guy shows up. Beat him, and the grandpa comes out. Talk about cultivation tropes. But fine. Since we're making a scene, let's make a big one. I turned to Chu Feng and Mu Shui. Disciples, today your master will teach you the most practical problem-solving technique. They both shouted, Please teach us, master. I picked up the battered iron hammer I used to smash Liruin earlier, slung it over my shoulder, and faced those high and mighty cultivators. Remember one thing, as long as your hammer is hard enough, all fancy magic is just garbage. Just then, those Grand Elders landed right in front of us. All of them were soul transformation stage masters, possessing terrifying auras. Who dares run wild at our gates? The lead elder's eyes burned with rage as he looked at the half-dead outer sect elder on the ground. Leng Qingqiu rushed over, adding plenty of drama as she explained what happened, making sure to highlight just how incredibly arrogant and disrespectful we were, and how we didn't care about their sect at all. Furious, the Grand Elder laughed. What a bold, hidden monster. Let's see what you've got. With a hand seal, a massive golden sword formed in the sky, its tip pointing straight at my forehead. The full power strike of a soul transformation master locked down the entire space, leaving us nowhere to run. Chu Feng and Mu Shui turned pale but still stepped forward, shielding me with their bodies. Just at this critical, hair-raising moment, an unexpected twist occurred. From the direction of the distant town, a blood-red sword light shot into the sky, sharp enough to split heaven and earth. Accompanied by a sky-shattering hum, a bronze sword carrying overwhelming murderous intent shot over like a meteor, blocking the path in front of us. Mystical, ancient runes covered its blade, radiating a soul-shaking terror. It was the ancient, cursed sword from my utility room. It had actually broken its own seal and escaped. In front of this cursed sword, that massive golden sword was like wet paper, instantly shredded by blood-red sword chi. The Grand Elder groaned, his face turning pale as paper, his eyes filled with absolute disbelief. This is the legendary blood sword. Has actually reappeared in the world? The blood sword circled the sky once, as if searching for something, then dived straight down, stabbing into the ground right next to Mushue's feet. It hummed happily, clearly trying to please its master. Complete silence fell over the crowd. Everyone was dumbfounded. This legendary, world-destroying ancient sword had actually chosen a wood-chopping girl as its master. Mushue was completely dazed, staring blankly at the blood sword at her feet, which vibrated with terrifying, murderous energy, her mind completely blank. I, on the other hand, was amused. No wonder this rusty blade cried every night. It wanted Mushue's 9-transformed Nirvana sword bone. Smart sword. Just as everyone was frozen in shock, the sky far above suddenly tore open with a massive black crack. An eye large enough to blot out the sun slowly opened, its cold, merciless gaze sweeping the earth before locking onto Mushue and the sword. A majestic, terrifying voice echoed in everyone's minds. The blood sword has appeared, and all worlds must perish. We, the gods of the upper realm, will never allow such evil to exist. The pressure was insane. Even the soul transformation Grand Elders were pinned to the ground, unable to budge. Lung Qingchu was scared white. The entire mountain shook violently, like doomsday had arrived. Chu Feng clenched his teeth, his bones creaking under the pressure, yet he still stood straight, shielding Mushue. Gripping the blood sword, Mushue stood her ground, though pale, her eyes burned with defiance. Looking up at that grandstanding eyeball in the sky, I picked my ear in annoyance. Hey, big eye up there, you're way too loud. My disciple just got a new toy, and you're ruining the mood. Shut up, or I'll go up there, pluck your eyeball out, and pickle it. As I spoke, the battered iron hammer in my hand emitted a faint black glow, freezing the very air. It felt as if a world-ending battle was about to erupt between my little blacksmith squad and these self-proclaimed gods. Honestly, I was just annoyed that dinner might be late. Enraged by my attitude, the massive eye unleashed a massive, bucket-thick purple lightning bolt straight from the crack aimed straight at my head. Below, cultivators shrieked and scrambled in all directions. The Grand Elder closed his eyes in despair. No one could survive divine punishment. The entire Tiang Xuan sect was going to be wiped out with us. Behind me, my disciples' eyes turned red as they tried to rush forward and block the strike. Without looking back, I snapped, "Stay put, both of you. Watch how your master forges." I bent my knees, threw my weight into it, and swung my battered hammer straight at the descending bolt. No earth-shattering explosion, no flashy spells, just a heavy, dull thud. At that exact moment, everyone witnessed a scene they would never forget for the rest of their lives. That world-destroying lightning bolt shattered like a fragile glass pillar under my hammer, scattering into harmless sparks that vanished into thin air. The giant eye narrowed sharply, as if staring at the most terrifying thing in existence before it could react. I leaped forward and shot into the sky like a cannonball, swinging my hammer right along the lightning's path toward the crack. This strike carried all the frustration I'd built up over 1,000 days of blacksmithing. Boom! The entire sky seemed to split open from the impact. A blood-curdling shriek echoed from the crack as the arrogant giant eye exploded, showering golden blood like rain all over the Tianshuan sect's courtyard plaza. The crack slammed shut under the violent tremors, the sky clearing, as if that doomsday scene had been a mere illusion. I landed lightly, patted the dust off my hands, and spat. Humph! Some god. Can't even take one blow and you dare come down here to show off? The plaza fell dead silent. Even the wind stopped. Everyone stared at me like I was a literal god. The Grand Elder's knees buckled, and he fell to the ground, his disciples following suit in the face of absolute power. Sect pride is just a joke. Shaking all over, cold sweat drenching his robes, the Grand Elder stammered, "Senior, your power is unmatched. Tiangsuan sect is honored to serve you. Just give the word." I tossed my hammer back into the cart, pushed it, and called my disciples over. "Let's go home and eat. I wouldn't return to this dump if you paid me." Passing Lung Qingchu, she kept her head down, too terrified to breathe. I ignored her completely, and strolled out of the sect with my disciples. Back at the shop, Su Yao had already made dinner. She'd somehow caught a wild pheasant that looked like a phoenix, and the delicious aroma filled the entire yard. During dinner, Mu Shui couldn't keep her hands off the bloodsword. Chu Feng was practically bouncing, showing Su Yao how I shattered the divine lightning. "Master, that strike was incredible. Please teach me," Chu Feng begged, eyes shining. I tossed a piece of meat into his bowl. "Once you can forge 10,000 perfect strikes in one breath, I'll teach you." Chu Feng's face fell, but his eyes burned with determination. Mu Shui looked at me with deep reverence. She knew that without me she'd still be hunted, and this ancient sword would never have chosen her. Having eaten my fill, I lay on my rocking chair, staring at the stars and planning my next move. The system gave me great things, but my sealed power was barely unlocked. To fully break it, I needed more disciples. Looks like my quiet life as a blacksmith is far from over. Just then, the system chimed in my head. Ding! Rare forging materials detected in an ancient ruin 1,000 miles away. Recommended to retrieve them. My eyes lit up. Rare materials? That's perfect for forging. The next morning, I gathered my disciples and packed up. "Master, where are we going?" Chu Feng asked, carrying a giant iron pot on his back. "To mine ore," I said with a grand wave of my hand. "I'm taking you to see some real treasures." The ancient ruins lay in a swamp shrouded in perpetual mist. It was a deadly place filled with toxic beasts that even golden core cultivators avoided. The four of us trudged through the muddy marsh. Su Yao sat on Chu Feng's shoulders, happily munching on a candied treat, while Mu Shui led the way. Any beast foolish enough to approach was instantly shredded by her sword qi. Suddenly, from the mist ahead came sounds of fierce fighting and desperate cries. Moving closer, we saw Tianshuan's sect disciples, surrounded by a dozen bone-spiked toxic crocodiles. The leader was none other than Lung Qingqiu. Covered in blood, her spiritual energy entirely drained, her chipped sword was useless, and she was seconds away from becoming crocodile food. "Talk about a small world," Chu Feng chuckled, enjoying her misery. I rubbed my chin, watching. It wasn't that I was feeling heroic, but those crocodile hides looked tough, perfect for making blacksmith aprons. "Chu Feng, go grab me some of those skins," I casually ordered. Chu Feng grinned. "You got it, master." He charged right into the pack without using lightning magic and simply curled up, shouting, "I'm a little mushroom." Their bites slammed into his shield, the massive rebound force leaving them dizzy. Mu Shui seized the moment, drawing the blood sword and leaving a dozen headless crocodiles in a flash. The whole fight took less than 5 minutes. Lung Qingqiu and her remaining sect disciples stood there, utterly dumbfounded. The terrifying beasts they had nearly died fighting were chopped down like vegetables by my 2 disciples. She stared blankly at me, her eyes filled with a storm of complex emotions. Part humiliation, part shock, but mostly a desperate, naked ambition. She stumbled forward and fell to her knees with a heavy thud. "Thank you for saving my life, Senior. I have nothing to offer, but I will serve you forever." I waved her off. "Do not flatter yourself. I only wanted these crocodile skins. It was just a convenient side quest." She gritted her teeth. "Senior, I know I was blind before, but I am the reincarnation of the Jiuyu Mystic Maiden. If you take me in, I can help you." I rolled my eyes. "The Jiuyu Mystic Maiden? Is that supposed to be special? My eldest disciple can shatter a mountain with one punch. My second is practically immune to physical attacks. My third holds an ancient killer bow. Aside from giving me attitude, what can you actually do?" She was speechless, her eyes welling with tears. When had a proud prodigy like her ever suffered such humiliation? But she knew I was right. In my blacksmith shop, her precious talent was utterly worthless. Ignoring her, I had Chu Feng skin the crocodiles and kept walking deeper into the ruins. Gritting her teeth, she and her followers trailed behind us. They seemed determined to cling to us. I could not be bothered to care, as long as they did not get in the way. Deep inside was a massive underground palace, dark and creepy, filled with ancient ruins and piles of white bones. Right then, my system chimed notifying me that the top-grade material lay in the deepest chamber. We blasted through every obstacle. Chu Feng's mushroom shield and Mu Shui's repelling skills worked flawlessly together, like an absolute bulldozer. Finally, we reached the end of the palace. No piles of gold or legendary treasures awaited us. No peerless martial arts either. Just a massive bronze altar in the center of the hall. Resting on it was an ancient, rust-covered bronze coffin. Surprisingly, the material my system wanted was the coffin itself. As I wondered how on earth to drag this giant thing home, a sudden sound echoed from inside. A spine-chilling scratching sound, as if something was trying to claw its way out. Chu Feng and Mu Shui gripped their weapons, on high alert. Behind us, Lung Qingchu and her group backed away in sheer terror. But right then, little Su Yao broke free from Chu Feng's grip, running toward the coffin on her short legs. Yao Yao, come back! It is dangerous, Chu Feng yelled. I reached out and stopped him, noticing her eyes had gone completely hollow, as if answering some ancient summons. She stopped right in front of the coffin and reached out her chubby little hand, pressing it gently against the runic lid. With a sharp crack, the seal which even a deity transformation powerhouse could not scratch shattered into pieces under her touch. The lid slid aside, releasing a wave of pure, ancient energy that hit us like a tidal wave. Peering inside, we saw no corpse. There was only a softly glowing jade pendant and a beast-skin scroll covered in ancient writing. Even stranger, a long, weary sigh echoed from the depths of the coffin. The sound of that sigh was absolutely baffling, because it sounded exactly like Su Yao, just carrying the weight of endless ancient lifetimes. Where did these ruins come from? What shocking secrets did my little disciple's true identity hold? What kind of trouble would this jade bring to my blacksmith shop? I stroked my chin, watching Su Yao slowly regain her senses, a faint smile playing on my lips. It seemed my quiet, peaceful blacksmithing life was about to get a whole lot noisier. But the moment her chubby little hand touched that glowing jade, the entire underground palace shook violently. The jade turned into a streak of light, shooting straight between her eyebrows. The little girl blinked, rubbing her forehead as if she felt absolutely nothing. But through my eye of truth, I saw it clearly. The spiritual energy inside her was like a volcano sleeping for millions of years, suddenly showing signs of awakening. The ancient sigh vanished, replaced by an overwhelming divine pressure that made you want to fall to your knees. But that heavy pressure lasted for less than a second before she turned around to grin at me. Brother Fan, I am hungry. Can we have roasted sweet potatoes? I let out a long sigh of relief. No matter what legendary figure she used to be, she was currently just my food-loving eldest disciple. I rubbed her head. We will roast some when we get home. Then, my eyes fell back on that massive bronze coffin. This was indeed the legendary material my system wanted. As I wondered how on earth to drag this giant thing home, the silent system in my head chimed. Congratulations, host. You have obtained the ancient creation bronze coffin, converting into a god-level blacksmith anvil. Instantly, the massive coffin shrank in a flash of blinding light, transforming into a neat, heavy, ancient-looking bronze anvil. It landed right at my feet, still marked by the weathering of countless ages. I nodded in satisfaction. Sure, this system usually gave me ridiculous skills, but its gifts were actually quite useful. Chu Feng and Mu Shui stood there with their jaws on the floor. A massive, mysterious coffin with a seal that deity transformation experts could not touch had literally just become a blacksmith anvil. Master, this is absolutely mind-blowing, Chu Feng stammered, completely incoherent. I stuffed the ancient beast-skin scroll into my chest pocket, grabbed the heavy bronze anvil with one hand, and lifted it easily. The weight was perfect. All right, let's head home. I will make you all some nice crocodile skin aprons. Tucked away in a corner, Lung Qingchu and her remaining disciples watched us effortlessly sweep up the ancient treasures. They barely dared to breathe. Only after we walked away did she grit her teeth, determination flashing in her eyes. Follow them. Even if I must sweep the floor outside his shop, I am staying near him. Back at my little shop, life returned to normal. I placed the new creation bronze anvil right in the middle of the courtyard. Instantly, the local spiritual energy surged tenfold. Even the dying, crooked tree in the corner sprouted fresh green buds overnight, blooming delicate little white flowers. Chu Feng worked shirtless every day, hammering iron on that bronze anvil. His sweat evaporated the moment it fell, cleansed by the ancient aura. Without even realizing it, his thunder attribute physique grew significantly stronger. Every single strike of his hammer echoed with low thunder and ancient runes. The neighbors actually thought my shop had transitioned into some kind of mystical temple. I threw the poisoned crocodile skins to Su Yao, letting her cut and sew them into some hideously ugly aprons. I handed one to Chu Feng and one to Mu Shui. Mu Shui stared at the crooked, threadbare leather apron. A rare look of hesitation crossed her cold face, but she obediently put it on anyway. The moment she did, her bonded legendary sword let out an excited, resonant hum. This was no ordinary apron. Sewn by Su Yao's creation-infused hands, the crocodile leather had transformed into a top-grade defensive vest capable of blocking a powerhouse's ultimate strike. Feeling its insane defensive power, Mu Shui's eyes welled with tears. Master is too good to us. Even these simple aprons are unmatched, priceless treasures. I lay back in my rocking chair, waving my paper fan and watching them work in those hideous aprons. Priceless treasures? Honestly, I just wanted to save their clothes from getting ruined by flying sparks. Meanwhile, outside my shop, we had gained a rather interesting view. Lung Ching-Chu, the proud genius of her sect, had actually built a tiny straw hut right across from us. Every morning before dawn, she swept our street and carried out our trash. The local young men spent their days loitering around, just to catch a glimpse of this once lofty goddess sweeping the dirt with a giant broom. Every time Chu Feng dumped our furnace ashes, he would deliberately stir up a massive cloud of dust, making her cough. "Junior sister, look at that crazy woman. She still has not given up," he whispered to Mu Shui, winking as she chopped wood. She did not even look. Her rusty axe, carrying a space-tearing sword intent, sliced straight through a piece of dark iron. "Focus. Master said if we do not finish this wood today, we do not eat." Leng Qingchu heard every word, her knuckles turning white around her broom. But she swallowed her anger. She had realized that ever since she started sweeping outside, she had been absorbing the stray spiritual energy leaking from my yard. Surprisingly, her stagnant cultivation was beginning to break through. This only made her more determined to cling to me at all costs. The days drifted by. I spent my time signing in to collect divine materials, sipping tea, and napping. My sealed cultivation was slowly unlocking at a snail's pace. I figured I could easily slap a Mahayana expert to death now, but outwardly, I still looked like a regular mortal with zero spiritual energy. One sunny afternoon, right after enjoying some of Su Yao's delicious chicken, I was picking my teeth when the sky suddenly darkened with heavy clouds. A suffocating, bloody stench immediately rolled over the town, plunging the bustling streets into a dead silence. The wind itself tasted like wet rust. Chu Feng froze mid-swing, his eyes locking onto the sky, his hands trembling with rage. He gripped his hammer so hard, his fingers left deep indents. His eyes turned blood red, and violent lightning burst from his body. "Master, it is them." His voice was as hoarse as sandpaper, thick with bone-deep hatred. I sat up from my chair. I spat out my toothpick. "Who?" "The Blood Fiend sect. The monsters who slaughtered my entire family," he snarled, trembling with sheer rage. I raised an eyebrow. "Ah, those bastards. Last time, they only sent 2 low-level scouts to die. But it looked like this time they brought the whole crew." The ominous red clouds pressed low as hundreds of crimson-robed cultivators on flying swords hovered over our town. Leading them was a withered old man, radiating the crushing pressure of a void refinement powerhouse. The blood aura around him literally formed screaming skulls in the air. This was Shui Wuya, the Blood Fiend sect master. He glared down at our town, his voice grating like a broken gong. "Survivor of the Chu family, I know you are hiding down there. Surrender your treasure and I might leave you a whole corpse. Otherwise, everyone in this town dies with you today." The terrified locals scrambled indoors, trembling. Leng Qingchu stood in the middle of the street holding her broom, her face deathly pale. They were the most notorious, ruthless, demonic sect for thousands of miles. Even her own sect avoided them. She glanced back at my shop, surprised by how quiet it was. I stood up, stretched my arms, and walked over to pat Chu Feng on the shoulder. "Disciple, they are literally knocking on our front door. Why did you stop hammering?" Chu Feng whipped around, his bloodshot eyes swimming with tears. "Master, there are too many of them, and they even brought a void refinement powerhouse. My life is worthless, but I cannot let them drag you and my junior sisters down." I smacked him on the back of his head. "Absolute nonsense. Even if my disciple tears a hole in the heavens, I will back you up. Since they decided to show up today, let us settle this debt once and for all. Go out there, use the forging techniques I taught you, and smash their bones into dust." Piece by piece, Chu Feng froze, forced his tears back, and gave me a deep, heavy kowtow. Accepting the command, the disciple lifted the heavy blacksmith hammer, which weighed several hundred pounds, and strode out of the courtyard. All alone, he faced hundreds of menacing demon cultivators hovering in midair. Looking at the hammer in Chu Feng's hands, Shui Wuya burst into a wild, arrogant laugh. "Ha ha ha! The Chu family remaining scum. Have you lost your mind? Trying to get revenge on me with a worthless blacksmith hammer? Go, mince him into meat paste." Over a dozen Blood Fiend sect disciples at the Foundation building and Golden Core stages smirked as they dove down, raining their crimson magic treasures over him. Instead of backing down, Chu Feng charged forward, his eyes as cold as daggers. Activating his Nirvana lightning body to the limit, purple lightning surged around him and his hammer. Stomping his feet, he launched into the sky like a cannonball, unleashing his first strike, the iron-cleaving stance. With a deafening crash, the three leading demon cultivators were pulverized into bloody mist by the devastating lightning strike before they could even scream. Even their souls were obliterated by the purple bolts. This was not blacksmithing, this was straight-up harvesting lives. The remaining cultivators were scared out of their wits and tried to flee, but Chu Feng gave them no chance. He swung his hammer in a flawless, impenetrable defense, and every single strike claimed a demon's life. A rain of blood showered the town's streets as he stood there like a god of death, bathed in lightning. This sight left Shui Wuya completely stunned. When this kid fled years ago, he was a worthless trash who had not even reached the chi refining stage. How could he gain such terrifying strength in just a few months? You useless trash. Elders, form the Blood Fiend array. Shui Wuya roared in fury. 4 nascent soul elders immediately dispersed to surround Chu Feng. They began waving their ominous soul-summoning banners, causing countless howling ghosts to swarm out. These spirits coalesced into a massive, blood-red cage, trapping Chu Feng inside. Inside the cage, crimson flames raged, attempting to refine Chu Feng into ash. The fire was so corrosive that it even warped the surrounding space. Feeling a searing pain on his skin, Chu Feng knew his current cultivation level could not withstand a direct attack from 4 nascent soul cultivators. Yet, he did not panic at all. With practiced ease, he tossed his hammer down, covered his head with both hands, and squatted right there in midair. He cleared his throat and yelled at the top of his lungs, "I am a little mushroom!" With a sharp hum, a bizarre ripple rippled outward. The crimson flames and vengeful ghosts suddenly seemed to go blind. They veered right around his body and crashed violently into the barrier on the opposite side. The 4 elders felt a sudden tightness in their chests as their own attacks rebounded entirely onto themselves, seemingly amplified in power. "What kind of devilish spell is this?" the elders screamed in horror. They desperately tried to recall their energy, but it was already too late. The inside of the array was a complete mess. Chu Feng just squatted in the dead center, as peaceful as a real mushroom, while the ghosts and soul flames thrashed wildly around him. Unable to contain the sheer, violent energy inside, the array finally shattered with a deafening explosion. The 4 nascent soul elders vomited blood and plummeted from the sky like kites with severed strings. Seizing the opportunity, Chu Feng stood up, caught his falling hammer, and swung it. 10 purple lightning bolts transformed into razor-sharp blades, instantly severing the heads of the 4 elders. Shui Wuya went completely insane. His glorious blood fiend sect was being utterly humiliated by a mere junior with a blacksmith hammer. "You little beast, I will skin you alive!" Shui Wuya took action himself. The terrifying pressure of the void refinement stage bore down like a mountain, making every house in town tremble. A massive, blood-red broadsword materialized in his hand, whistling shrilly as it tore through space, hacking down toward Chu Feng's head. This strike locked onto Chu Feng entirely, leaving him nowhere to run. Just as he was about to squat down and play the mushroom again, a crisp, cold shout echoed from the blacksmith shop. "Second senior brother, get back!" Mu Shui stepped out, wearing a hideous crocodile skin apron and carrying her bone-red sword. Carrying the blood sword of the heavens, she took a step out of the courtyard. She did not draw her sword. Instead, she took a deep breath, closed her eyes, placed her hands awkwardly on her hips, and stepped forward with her left foot. Her face flushed red like a ripe apple as she faced that world-ending strike. Gritting her teeth, she screamed 3 times, "Back off! Back off! Back off!" An indescribable, bizarre force erupted from her. Without any flashy light shows or deafening roars, the menacing Shui Wuya, along with his giant, blood-red broadsword, was suddenly flung backward in an incredibly absurd, unstoppable manner, as if someone had pressed the rewind button on him. Not just him, but the remaining Blood Fiend sect disciples in the air were also swept up by this invisible force, flying away with a loud whoosh. They flew straight out of town, over the hills, and finally turned into tiny black dots in the sky, vanishing from sight. They flew a whopping 5 kilometers away. Holding his hammer, Chu Feng stood there looking at the empty sky, his mouth twitching violently. "Junior sister, your human cannon technique is absolutely ridiculous no matter how many times I see it." Mu Shui covered her blushing face and dashed back into the courtyard. It was so embarrassing. She would rather be killed. The townspeople cautiously opened their windows, looked at the cloudless sky, and tacitly pretended nothing had happened. They just went back to their business. After all, living near this blacksmith shop for so long had given everyone nerves of steel, let alone some demon cultivators flying away. Even if an immortal fell from the heavens, they would probably just assume the blacksmith was testing a new invention. Meanwhile, on a barren hill 5 kilometers away, Shui Wuya was hung up on a tree, spitting blood in sheer rage. What kind of demonic spell is this? As a glorious void refinement powerhouse, he had been blasted away before even touching his opponent. If word got out, where would the Blood Fiend sect hide its face? Entire sect, hear my command. Activate the Blood Demon Array and flatten that town. Driven utterly mad, Shui Wuya bit his tongue and spat essence blood onto a black jade talisman. The dizzy, battered demon cultivators also cut their wrists, allowing their blood to pool in the air, slowly forming a massive, sky-blotting crimson magic circle. Back in the blacksmith yard, I was happily munching on melon seeds when the light suddenly dimmed. Looking up, I saw a massive shadow gathering in the sky 5 kilometers away. It was a colossal, blood-red phantom with 3 heads and 6 arms, radiating a despairing aura of death. Its sheer pressure had already surpassed the void refinement stage, reaching the threshold of the Mahayana stage. Chu Feng and Mu Shui looked extremely solemn, knowing that a monster of this level was far beyond their ability to handle. Master, that is the guardian demon of the Blood Fiend sect. Chu Feng gripped his hammer, ready to fight to the death. I brushed the seed shells off my hands and stood up, rather annoyed. Can't a guy rest in the afternoon? Hanging such an ugly thing in the sky completely ruins the view, you know? I walked over to the creation bronze anvil, picked up a glowing red horseshoe that hadn't been hammered yet, weighed it in my hand, and aimed at the roaring demon 5 kilometers away. Like throwing a dart, I casually tossed it. The moment that red-hot horseshoe left my hand, it made no earth-shattering noise. It flew through the air in a completely ordinary arc. But in the eyes of Shui Wuya and his men, that was the moment the world itself seemed to turn upside down. The tiny horseshoe rapidly expanded in their vision, carrying a terrifying force that even the heavenly Tao would shrink back from. Instantly tearing through 5 kilometers of space, it struck the giant demon right between the eyes with a soft thud. That legendary, immortal guardian demon, which could supposedly withstand attacks from a Mahayana cultivator, didn't even have time to scream. Like a balloon popped by a needle, it exploded with a loud bang into a giant cloud of bloody mist. And that was not all. The horseshoe kept going with undiminished force, crashing directly into Shui Wuya's chest. The Grand Sect Master of the Blood Fiend sect didn't even leave any last words before his soul was obliterated. Even the barren mountain behind him was completely erased by the impact, leaving only a massive crater behind. The surviving Blood Fiend sect disciples were scared out of their minds, falling to their knees one after another. The air was thick with the smell of copper and sheer terror. Back in the shop, I clapped my hands and looked at Chu Feng. Revenge is served. Feeling better? I asked. Chu Feng stared blankly at the vanished mountain 5 kilometers away, his tears finally bursting forth. He fell to his knees, kowtowed heavily to me 3 times, and began to sob uncontrollably. All his suffering, fear, and hatred from the past 3 years poured out in that river of tears. Mu Shui stood nearby, her eyes red as she gently patted his back. Su Yao ran over too, handing him a clean handkerchief. Second senior brother, don't cry anymore. Yao Yao will roast some sweet potatoes for you later. I looked at my disciples and felt a wave of emotion. Fighting and killing is normal in the cultivation world, but if anyone dares to touch a single hair of Lin Fan's people, I will hunt them down to the depths of hell to scatter their ashes. All right, enough crying like a baby, go sweep the yard. We still have to light the forge and work later. I waved my hand and lay back in my rocking chair. That throw was effortless, but I noticed the cultivation seal on my system panel had loosened significantly. It seems protecting my disciples and resolving karma is key to breaking the seal. By evening, the streets outside returned to their usual peace. The surviving Blood Fiend sect disciples had scrambled back to their lair, likely too terrified to ever set foot in this town again. Leng Qingqiu stood at the door, silently sweeping away the fallen leaves. The way she looked at me was no longer just reverence, she viewed me as a literal god. Killing a void refinement powerhouse with a piece of scrap metal? Even at the peak of her past life, she would have had to kneel and call me ancestor. Just as we sat down to eat dinner, a little chubby kid came waddling around the street corner. He wore incredibly tattered clothes, his face covered in soot, and he was clutching a pitch-black iron wok to his chest. Sniffling his nose as he walked closer, he kept muttering about the amazing smell. Following the scent, the chubby kid stopped right at the entrance of our blacksmith shop. His large eyes stared unblinkingly at the bowl of braised pork in Su Yao's hands, drool practically running down his chin. I paid him no mind at first, but then my playing dead system suddenly blared with a deafening alarm. Ding! Prime disciple candidate detected. Owner of the unique heaven-burning creation body. The host must recruit him. I nearly choked on my tea, staring wide-eyed at the kid, who was shaped like a round ball. I couldn't believe it. The heaven-burning creation body? For this kid? System? Is your detector broken? Seeing us all staring, the little fat kid scratched his head awkwardly and gave us a silly grin. Hello, masters. My name is Zhu Dachong. I'm a chef, but I've been fleeing famine and I am too starving to walk. Can I please have a bite to eat? While I was hesitating on how to trick him into becoming my disciple, the ancient beast skin scroll I brought back from the ruins flew out from the house on its own, glowing with blinding golden runes. The golden runes began spinning rapidly around the battered black wok in Zhu Dachang's hands. Terrified, the kid dropped the wok with a heavy metallic clatter. I just picked this up on the road. It has nothing to do with me, he stammered, backing away. I walked over and picked up the black wok. The instant I touched it, an incredibly intense heat surged through my palm, nearly blistering my skin. This was definitely no ordinary iron pot. Connecting this with the records on the beast skin scroll, I realized I suddenly had an idea. Turning to Dachang, who was still drooling, I flashed a grin as sweet as the big bad wolf's. Hey Dachang, want braised pork every single day? He nodded like crazy without a second thought. Yes. More than anything, I pointed at that black pot. Apprentice yourself to me, and this is your new wok. In exchange, you handle our blacksmith shop's kitchen. Deal? He blinked, looking at me like I was some savior, then fell straight to his knees. Master, please accept my bow. From now on, I will cook for you for life. A system prompt chimed in my head. Congratulations. Disciple acquired. Cultivation seal heavily released. Reward unlocked. Absolute defenses upgrade. Reflection of all things. Unlocked Zhu Dachang's heaven-burning creation body, plus a god-tier cooking set. I smiled at the system notifications. Just as I was about to ask Su Yao to clean our new cook-up, a massive, deafening rip tore through the sky. We all looked up to see the clear night sky being violently ripped open by sheer, overwhelming force. Blinding lightning flashed inside the massive rift, alongside winds violent enough to end worlds. Then, an incredibly angry booming voice echoed from deep within. Audacious mortals, how dare you destroy my clone's vessel? Today, my heavenly army shall wipe you and this entire world out of existence. The sheer pressure radiating from above was 10,000 times heavier than before. It literally froze the air around us. Buildings across town began to crumble as giant cracks split the earth. Chu Feng, Mu Shui, and Su Yao braced themselves, while poor Dachang squeezed his black pot in pure terror. Outside, Lung Qingchu was pinned flat to the dirt, completely paralyzed. A true immortal has descended from the upper world. I sighed, watching the massive army gathering inside the tier in the sky. Casually, I tossed the glowing beast skin scroll in my hand straight into the forge to use as kindling, then turned back to my 4 oddball disciples. Looks like we are adding some heavenly soldiers as a side dish for dinner tonight. Above us, the massive rift looked like a hungry abyss. Fierce void winds ripped off roofs, and golden lightning poured down like a waterfall. Legions of heavenly soldiers in brilliant golden armor marched out on clouds. It was 10,000 times more grand than any mortal emperor's parade. At the front rode the true immortal on a Keelan spewing samadhi fire, while clutching a demon-subduing staff wrapped in heavenly laws. He glared down at our rundown blacksmith shop. Mortal ants, prepare to die. His voice boomed like 10,000 brass bells, violently shaking the ground beneath our feet. The townspeople, who were out buying groceries, looked up at this apocalyptic sight. The elders dropped their baskets and practically sprinted into their cellars. Having lived near my blacksmith shop for months, they were well practiced in escaping chaos, and had seen wilder things than some 1,000-year-old cultivators. Chu Feng was already crackling with furious purple lightning, his knuckles turning white as he gripped his massive blacksmith hammer. Beside him, Mu Shui stood silently, her crimson sword buzzing with sheer maniacal excitement as if sensing a feast. Tiny Su Yao stepped in front of me, clenching her chubby little fists, while Dachong collapsed in fear, his legs shaking as he hugged that black iron pot. Master, do we run? He wailed. I lazily stood up from my rocking chair, brushing off some sunflower seed shells. Run? They just delivered tonight's ingredients to our doorstep. Besides, Dachang, today is your first day as my disciple. So, this celebratory feast is all on you. Dachang stared at me, his small eyes wide with pure disbelief. But master, those are literal gods. I walked over and smacked his plump neck. Gods? Please. In my eyes, they are just flying free-range chickens. Use the technique I just showed you to stew that fiery beast. Dachang was terrified, but he was a born chef. The moment he heard the word stew, his primal urge to cook completely conquered his fear. He took a deep breath, forced his trembling legs to stand, and hoisted his black pot. Instantly, his dormant heaven-burning lineage surged to life, and his system-gifted god of cookery set began glowing with a deep golden light. Guided by my bizarre chant, De Chang held the pot in his left hand, slapped its bottom with his right, and roared, "Heat the pan! Add the oil!" With a massive boom, the basin-sized black pot suddenly ballooned, growing into an enormous, sky-blocking wok, dwarfing the rift above. Inside, the purple nine nether flames of his special constitution roared to life, their unnatural heat literally causing the surrounding void to hiss and sizzle. The heavenly army stood completely dumbfounded. They had faced flying swords and legendary treasures, but never a giant wok. The Qilin riding true immortal was absolutely furious. "Ignorant, lower realm scum! I will reduce you to dust." He slammed his staff down, ordering tens of thousands of soldiers to cast their spells. A torrential rain of colorful light crashed toward our shop. A single spark could easily obliterate a high-tier cultivator. My disciples moved to fight, but I stopped them. "Just watch. Let your fourth brother show you how to cook." Da Chang was fully in the zone now. Staring at the falling spells with bloodshot eyes, he swung his arm and roared a line that made even me cringe. "Reduce the sauce on high heat." Suddenly, the massive iron wok unleashed an unstoppable vacuum-like suction. Those apocalyptic spells did not even touch the ground before being swallowed whole. And that suction kept stretching upward, pulling the high and mighty heavenly troops down like dumplings into the boiling purple flames. Even the majestic jade Qilin flailed its hooves helplessly before howling and plunging right into the soup. Instantly, the sky cleared up. A rich, mouth-watering aroma of meat and pure immortal energy drifted from the wok, smelling absolutely divine. The true immortal's eyes nearly popped out. He had to burn his own origin essence just to keep from being sucked in. Watching his entire elite army get turned into a giant stew, he shook with pure rage, coughing up golden blood. "Monster! What sorcery is this?" he roared, pulling an ancient, totem-carved bronze mirror from his robes. The moment it appeared, the local laws of nature froze solid. A devastating beam of light erupted from the mirror, aiming straight for De Chang's forehead. Still focusing on his cooking pot, the poor guy stood no chance of dodging. As the soul-crushing beam neared, I sighed. The new kid was still too green. Guess the master has to handle the cleanup. I grabbed a rusty set of coal tongs, took a casual step forward, and instantly bypassed all spatial limits. I stood right in front of De Chang. The world-ending beam slammed directly into my chest, but the system's newly unlocked absolute defense upgrade, known as Reflection of All Things, silently went to work. There was no massive explosion or flashy energy shield. The beam simply hit an invisible, indestructible wall. It did not leave a single scratch on me. Instead, it bounced right back at 10 times its original speed. He did not even have time to react before his own ultimate attack hit him head-on. With a dull thud, the high and mighty true immortal exploded into a cloud of golden mist. His soul was instantly wiped out. His ancient bronze mirror came clattering down. Quick as a flash, I snatched it midair with my rusty coal tongs. The quality was decent enough, perfect as a vanity mirror for Su Yao. I casually tossed it over my shoulder. I turned back to De Chang, who was still dazed. "The heat is perfect. Take it off the fire, or the meat will get too tough." Waking from his trance, he chanted his spell, and the massive pot shrank back down, landing safely in the yard, atop the bronze stand. Golden bubbles gurgled inside. The army and their Qilin had been completely brewed into a pure, concentrated soup of immortal essence. The rich, thick aroma actually formed glowing clouds hovering directly over our shop. Any mouse smelling this would probably achieve instant enlightenment. Chufeng and Mushui gulped, and even my stoic female disciple took an eager step forward. I grabbed some bowls from the kitchen, handed them out, and smiled. "Eat up while it's hot. De Chang, your cooking is incredible. Way better than any restaurant." The 5 of us dug into the immortal soup. Outside, Leng Qingqiu watched from behind a shed, absolutely terrified as she saw us casually eating a true immortal. Yet, the irresistible scent kept drifting into her nose. After sneaking just a few breaths of it, her long stagnant cultivation suddenly broke through its limits, shooting her straight from foundation establishment to the golden core stage. She covered her mouth in absolute disbelief. A realm that took her a century to reach in her past life was attained just by smelling our dinner. Gritting her teeth, she gathered her courage, walked right up to the door of my shop, and fell to her knees. "Senior, please let me wash your dishes. I will do any chore just to stay by your side." Chewing on a piece of Chilean cartilage, I did not even look up. Fine, but break a dish and I deduct 10 years of your life. Head to the back. Overjoyed, she bowed repeatedly before stepping into the yard, standing meekly by the well. That night, the shop was overflowing with energy. Chu Feng downed 3 big bowls, instantly upgrading his tribulation lightning body to its second tier. His purple lightning turned dark gold, pushing him to peak golden core. Mu Shui's progress was even crazier. Her Nirvana sword bone absorbed the immortal essence, fusing her soul with her sword. She stood there like an unsheathed, legendary blade, reaching the 7th stage of nascent soul. Meanwhile, Da Chang sobbed as he ate, claiming he had never tasted anything so good. His special physique fully stabilized, boosting his power and making his massive frame as tough as the finest defensive treasure. Little Su Yao simply burped, curled up in my arms, and drifted off to sleep. Watching my monstrous disciples, I grinned and checked my system panel. My cultivation seal had just unlocked another 10%. Now, I feel like I could slap that rift in the sky shut if I wanted to. Late that night, as my disciples retreated to cultivate and Lung Ching Chu quietly meditated in the woodshed, I settled back into my rocking chair. Staring at the starry night, soaking in this rare peace, I felt a stir in my arms. I looked down to find little Su Yao awake. Her tiny hands tightly gripped a wooden toy I carved from scraps 2 years ago, tears still staining her cheeks. Her big eyes swam with deep sadness. "What is it, Yao Yao? Get a stomachache from eating too much?" I sat up to check her forehead. She shook her head, burying her face in my chest, mumbling, "Brother Fan, I just had a really long dream. There was a massive world, and everything was on fire. The sky turned black. Lots of bad guys with weapons just like those people in the sky today were hunting down my mom and dad." Her little shoulders shook with quiet sobs. "To protect me, my parents put me inside a freezing cold bronze box. They told me, 'Yao Yao, you have to live and see a world without war for us.' Then they pushed me into the black void. Brother Fan, I am not an orphan. I am a jinx who got them killed, right? If they had not tried to protect me, they were so strong they definitely could have escaped." My heart clenched at her words. I remembered the creation bronze coffin in the ancient ruins. It was never an ancient tomb. It was an escape pod designed to cross endless star systems. Little Su Yao was carrying the destruction of an entire world and deep, bloody vengeance. I sighed, pulling this girl normally strong but now fragile as a porcelain doll tightly into my arms. "Nonsense," I whispered. "Your parents risked everything so you could live happily, eat meat, and drink hot soup, not cry over here." I gently patted her back. "There are no jinxes in this world, only hammers that are not hard enough. Remember, this blacksmith shop is your home. If the sky falls, your brother Fan will hold it up. Even if the villains who destroyed your home find you, I will throw them one by one into De Chang's iron pot and stew them for your dinner." Su Yao lifted her tear-stained face, staring up at me. "Brother Fan, you are so good. When I grow up, I will protect you." Amused by her acting like a little adult, I laughed and pinched her nose. Sure, you protect me when you grow up. Now go to sleep. We have to wake up early to buy cabbage in town." Watching her little legs run back into the house, I leaned back in my chair, my gaze turning serious. It seemed these endless worlds were far more chaotic than I imagined. Even a sweet child like Su Yao had to suffer. I needed to speed up my forging and craft top-tier gear for every one of my apprentices. Early the next morning, while I was still dreaming in bed, Chu Feng was pacing anxiously outside. "Master, this is bad. The blacksmith shop has run out of fuel." I yawned and opened the door. "No fuel? Did we not just stew a keelan yesterday?" Chu Feng pointed bitterly to the empty courtyard. "The coal is completely gone. Junior brother De Chang says he cannot cook without fire. And those iron ores you bought yesterday? I smashed them all into powder with one strike." "Powder! We do not even have scrap iron left." I slapped my thigh. I had forgotten that the huge bronze anvil, although imbued with natural creation power, consumed materials at a terrifying rate. Normal iron would turn to ash before I even struck it. We needed to buy premium spirit ore. But I patted my flat pockets. The shop barely had any savings left, and over the past few months we had done nothing but fight. We had not sold a single farm tool. Where would we get money for premium spirit ore? My eyes darted around, landing on a pile of junk in the yard corner. Those were ruined tools Chu Feng made, including crooked hoes, chipped kitchen knives, and a pitch-black fire poker. "I have an idea!" I clapped. "Chu Feng, Mu Shui, load these onto the cart. Today we are visiting Heaven Treasure Pavilion in the city." Chu Feng looked utterly confused. "Master, why are we going there? That is the largest cultivator market for 100,000 miles. Everything inside is outrageously expensive. Broke people like us will probably get kicked out. I glared at him. Who said we are going to buy? We are going to sell. Bring all these supreme treasures. Today, we make a fortune. Load them all. Today, we strike it rich. Mu Shui looked at the chipped kitchen knife in her hand, which looked like it had been chewed by a dog, her lip twitching. Master, you call this a supreme treasure? I nodded with absolute seriousness. What? You look down on your brother's knife? Stop complaining and load the cart. The four of us, along with our newly hired kitchen maid, Lung Qingqiu, pushed a battered wooden cart, making our grand way toward Heavenly Pavilion City hundreds of miles away. At our current speed, a few hundred miles took no longer than a quick meal. Heavenly Pavilion City was an incredibly bustling town under the Heavenly Pavilion sect. The streets were packed with cultivators flying on swords. Heaven Treasure Pavilion sat right in the center of a towering, magnificent 9-story glazed pagoda. Just as we pushed our battered cart to the entrance, 2 guards in fine robes blocked our path. Move along. Go beg somewhere else, you hillbillies. This is Heaven Treasure Pavilion. No unauthorized personnel allowed. The guards looked at me with pure disgust, especially when they saw the cart full of blackened, ugly iron tools, one even holding his nose. Chu Feng, with his fiery temper, was about to explode on the spot. Master, let me smash this stupid pagoda with one hammer blow. I held him back, flashing a friendly smile at the guards. Gentlemen, we are actually here to auction off some treasures. Please let us in. Auction treasures? The guards sneered, as if hearing the funniest joke in the world. You call the scrap metal on that battered cart treasures? Do you think I am blind? Get lost, or we will break your legs. Just then, an elder wearing a luxurious robe stepped out from the pavilion. He frowned and scolded them. What is all this racket? Show some respect. The guard instantly put on a flattering smile. Manager Li, these beggars claim they want to auction treasures. They brought a pile of ruined farm tools to cause trouble. I am chasing them away. Manager Li glanced casually at us. His eyes lingered on Lung Qingqiu for a second, as if she looked familiar, but he did not think much of it. He waved his hand impatiently. Get rid of them. Do not ruin our pavilion's business. I sighed. Cultivators nowadays have absolutely no vision. Mu Shui, grab a kitchen knife and show this manager some reality. With an expressionless face, Mu Shui picked up the chipped kitchen knife from the cart and tossed it toward a nearby stone used for testing weapon power. That stone was made of 10,000-year-old basalt, and even a full-power strike from a nascent soul cultivator would only leave a faint white scratch on it. The kitchen knife tumbled slowly through the air, looking completely harmless. Manager Li let out a cold sneer. What absolute nonsense. If that scrap metal can leave even a mark on the testing stone, I will eat the rock. Before he could finish his sentence, a tiny, faint slicing sound echoed. Like cutting through soft tofu, the battered knife did not bounce back at all. Instead, it sank deep into the stone, with not even the handle left visible. A dead silence fell over the crowd. The guard's jaws literally hit the floor. Manager Li's cloudy eyes widened larger than a bull's, his eyeballs nearly popping out. Trembling, he walked over to the testing stone and touched the mirror-smooth cut. A subtle yet utterly terrifying aura of destruction surged from the cut straight into his soul, scaring him so badly he collapsed to the ground. How is this possible? No spiritual energy fluctuation, yet it sliced through basalt so easily. This is supreme simplicity. This is an immortal weapon. Manager Li scrambled up frantically, lunging at our battered cart like a starving wolf. With trembling hands, he picked up a dirty, muddy hoe, tears streaming down his face. Top grade. All of them are top grade. Heavens, to think I would see so many immortal tier artifacts in my lifetime. I sat on the edge of the cart, swinging my legs. Manager Li, do you want that stone, steamed or braised? The Chang can cook it for you for free. Manager Li snapped out of it and slapped himself hard, ignoring all dignity. Senior, please forgive me. I was blind to offend you. Quick, please come inside. Today, our pavilion is hosting a once-in-a-century grand auction. If your treasures are featured as the grand finale, it will definitely shake the entire cultivation world. Guided closely by Manager Li, we walked proudly into the VIP private room on the top floor of the pavilion. The room was extremely luxurious, filled with rare spirit fruits and fresh tea. Lung Qingqiu naturally stood behind me, massaging my shoulders. Chu Feng and Mu Shui looked down curiously at the massive crowd in the auction hall. The auction soon began. The early items like Earthgrade manuals and 10,000-year herbs meant absolutely nothing to us. My apprentices did not even bother to look. However, Zhu Dachang was highly interested in a ginseng root that looked like a giant turnip, saying it would be great for soup. Finally, The grand finale arrived. The chief auctioneer, a very charming woman, announced with a trembling voice, "Honored guests, our next item will completely shatter your understanding of magical weapons. It is a legendary treasure capable of securing a top-tier sect's destiny." As the red cloth was pulled back, the entire hall fell so silent you could hear a pin drop. On the display stand sat a completely pitch-black fire poker. After 3 seconds of dead silence, the hall erupted into deafening laughter. Has the pavilion gone mad? Trying to fool us with a fire poker? There are plenty of these in my kitchen. Do they think we have more money than brains? Facing the skepticism and mockery, the auctioneer remained calm. She carefully put on a pair of special silkworm silk gloves, gently picked up the poker, and walked to the testing array in the center of the hall. Everyone, look closely. This array was personally set up by a deity transformation expert and is a top-tier defensive barrier. Without channeling any spiritual energy, she simply tapped the array barrier lightly with the fire poker. Just a light tap, and a loud crack echoed throughout the entire hall. Before everyone's terrified eyes, the legendary barrier said to withstand even peak deity transformation attacks shattered like fragile glass, covered instantly in spiderweb cracks, before completely exploding into a shower of light with a massive boom. The laughter stopped instantly. Everyone looked like choked ducks, mouths wide open without a sound. What kind of monster weapon was this? Shattering a deity transformation array solely through its raw material. What if spiritual energy was channeled? Starting price: 1 million premium spirit stones, with minimum increments of 100,000. The auctioneer struck the gavel. Instantly, the hall descended into a bidding frenzy. 2 million, 3 million, 5 million. Even if I go broke. Listening to the soaring numbers, Chu Feng swallowed hard. Master, are we rich now? I broke that fire poker yesterday and just threw it in the corner. If I knew it was worth this much, I would have forged more. I took a sip of tea. Calm down. Stop acting like you have never seen the world. Later, take the money and buy up all the premium iron ore in the city. In the end, the fire poker was bought by a mysterious masked elder for the staggering price of 15 million premium spirit stones. Not only that, all the farm tools we brought were completely sold out. The pavilion did not even take a commission and instead gave us their highest level purple gold black card. We pushed our empty cart home, completely loaded with goods. Zhu Dachang bought several cartloads of high-grade beast meat and rare ingredients, while Chu Feng cleared out the premium spirit ores from all the major shops in town, walking back. On the town road, the setting sun stretched our shadows long. We chatted and laughed as if we had just gone grocery shopping. But as we neared the town, I suddenly halted, my eyes narrowing. Behind me, Lung Qingqiu sensed the danger. She nervously gripped her broom. "Come out," I called out lazily toward the pitch-black woods ahead. "Aren't you tired of feeding mosquitoes up there?" Instantly, a rustling noise broke the silence, and several ragged figures plunged down from the treetops. They landed right in front of our wooden cart. Leading them was a one-armed old man covered in deep, bone-deep scars. His breath was as faint as a flickering candle in the wind, but his eyes were locked dead on, staring intensely at Su Yao, who was hiding behind my back. Chu Feng immediately stepped forward, dark golden lightning crackling around him. "Master, these old beggars look dangerous. Should I just crush them with my hammer?" Leng Qingqiu readied her broom, but instead of fighting, the one-armed old man fell to his knees in the mud with a heavy thud. The others behind him dropped down in unison. Tears streamed down his dirty, wrinkled face as his lips trembled. "Little princess, your old servant has finally found you." That title stunned us all. Su Yao poked out her fluffy little head, her big eyes wide with confusion. "Grandpa, you have the wrong person. Brother Fan rescued me from the snow. I am not a princess." The old man began kowtowing frantically, his forehead bleeding against the stones. Trembling, he pulled a tattered cloth from his chest, revealing a dull, cracked stone. "Little princess, I could never be mistaken. You carry the distinct aura of the creation bronze coffin. When our homeland was ruthlessly destroyed by the upper world, our kingdom shattered. The king and queen used the last of their soul power to smuggle you into the void. We old survivors fought through the carnage, searching for you for 3 whole years." Hearing this, Su Yao's chubby little body suddenly stiffened. She stared blankly at the stone in the old man's hand, tears instantly flooding her big eyes. That deep bloodline connection could not lie. She stumbled forward and hugged that freezing stone, sobbing her heart out. "Daddy, Mommy, Yao Yao misses you so much. I eat all my meals and behave every day, so why did you leave me?" Seeing this little girl, who normally lifts hundreds of pounds of iron, crying like a helpless kitten, my heart was pierced with pain. Chu Feng clenched his fists, his eyes turning red, while Mu Shui looked away to wipe her tears. Even Zhu Dechang, that mindless fat guy, sniffled loudly. The old man wept. Little princess, your parents never abandoned you. Sealed inside this creation soul stone are their very last broken souls. If we can somehow find a legendary Daluo immortal, perhaps we can restore their consciousness and let them look upon their most beloved daughter once again. Hearing there was hope, Su Yao spun around and ran to me. Clutching the stone, she grabbed my clothes tightly and fell to her knees. Brother Fan, please save my parents. I will eat less meat and work much harder. I will never be naughty again. Please. I scooped her into my arms, gently stroking her head with heartache. Silly girl, why are you being so formal with me? Forget a remnant soul, even if they were completely erased. I would raid the underworld and tear up the book of life and death. No one makes my disciple cry. I turned to Chu Feng. Grab all the high-grade spirit ores we just bought. We are going home. No customers today. We are lighting the greatest forge in history. Chu Feng saluted. Those old retainers exchanged doubtful looks, clearly unable to believe a simple blacksmith could revive shattered souls. But I did not bother explaining. We rushed back to town, and I immediately ordered Leng Xingqiu to lock the gates tight. We hung a sign saying forging in progress, keep out. Walking to the bronze anvil of creation in the courtyard, I took a deep breath. I put away all my system cooking tools. Tonight, we do nothing but pure, raw blacksmithing. Disciples, listen up. I looked at my 4 disciples standing straight. Chu Feng, Mu Shui, Da Cheng, and Su Yao. Tonight, I will forge 2 physical bodies. They must reconstruct meridians and withstand heavenly backlash. De Chang, start the fire with your 9 nether flame and crank the heat to the limit. Do not stop without my command. Zhu Dechang thumped his chest. Master, even if I melt all my fat, I won't let it dim. Chu Feng, use your lightning body to purge all impurities once the ores turn to liquid. Shatter every trace of chaos to ensure absolute purity. Chu Feng gripped his forging hammer, his eyes blazing. Understood, Master. Mu Shui, use your sword intent to carve the soul-gathering array onto the new bones without a single mistake. A single slip means instant soul death. Mu Shui drew her sword, her expression dead serious. Master, trust me. Finally, I looked at Su Yao, her eyes red and swollen. Yao Yao, you are the key. Once they form, fuse your creation, energy, and bloodline aura inside. Only then will your parents' souls accept these new vessels. Su Yao nodded hard and wiped her tears. Brother Fan, I am ready. At my command, the entire blacksmith shop instantly erupted into a massive furnace. Zhu Dechang roared, unleashing his creation physique. The black pot transformed into a furnace, sending dark purple flames surging skyward, turning night into day. I took dozens of sacks of premium spirit ores and dumped them all straight into the fire. 10,000-year ice iron, 9 heaven star steel, phoenix blood gold, legendary treasures that would spark bloody wars in the outside world, were melted down like cheap cabbage. Too slow. I frowned, grabbing my tattered palm leaf fan next to me and fanned the flames with all my might. Boom. A massive column of fire shot hundreds of feet into the sky. Under the extreme heat, the spirit ores melted into a pool of glowing, multicolored liquid essence. Bring the lightning, I roared. Chu Feng's eyes flashed with golden light as he leaped high into the air. Countless dark golden lightning bolts blasted from his fists, directly into the liquid essence. With a deafening crackle, all remaining impurities were instantly reduced to ashes, leaving only the purest essence of heaven and earth. I picked up the rusted tongs, transformed from my long-dormant ancient sword, and placed the glowing liquid firmly onto the bronze anvil of creation. Closing my eyes, I gripped the battered hammer I always used to forge. When my eyes snapped open, my lazy demeanor vanished, replaced by an aura of supreme majesty that could split heaven and earth. Watch closely. This is the ultimate secret of forging, the cosmic furnace that shapes all creation. My hammer blurred into a storm of shadows, each strike carrying the rhythm of the great Tao. Clang, 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 clang. The crisp ringing echoed to the heavens, and the entire town and surrounding lands trembled with every strike. The glowing liquid split into 2 parts under my hammering, slowly taking the shape of human bones. Seizing the perfect moment, Mu Shui slipped through the flying sparks like a phantom, her sword dancing rapidly across the skeletal structures, carving complex, profound ancient soul-gathering arrays onto them. Suddenly, black clouds gathered and wild winds roared as a world-destroying heavenly pressure crashed down. Defying fate and reconstructing souls was strictly forbidden by the laws of nature. The heavenly eye of lightning slowly opened in the clouds, staring down coldly at our small blacksmith shop. Violet bolts of world-ending lightning, capable of vaporizing great cultivators, brewed wildly in the sky. Those old retainers collapsed in sheer terror, screaming, "Heaven is punishing us. We are dead." Lung Qingqiu turned pale, clutching her broom, while Chu Feng and Mu Shui gritted their teeth through their fear. My hammer did not falter for a single second. I only slightly frowned as the heavenly pressure began to choke out our fire, and Chang struggled, drenched in sweat. I let out a cold snort. "Hey, big eyeball up there. You came just in time. My furnace is missing a bellows puller." At that exact second, I reached my left hand toward the sky. I reversed my advanced system ability, turning it into an irresistible, terrifying vacuum. That high and mighty eye of heavenly wrath did not even have a single chance to resist before I dragged it straight out of the clouds. With a wet splat, it crashed beside the furnace. The eye of heaven was utterly dumbfounded. The supreme ruler of life and death snatched out of the sky like a common chicken. Before it could react, I kicked its eyelid. "What are you waiting for? Blow. Your lightning will fuel the fire. If the heat drops, I will forge you into an anvil." The eye of heaven almost wept, but it sensed my aura, which was countless dimensions higher than its own. Knowing it was outmatched, the grand incarnation of heaven puffed its cheeks and spat purple lightning into the furnace, helping Chang burn the fire even hotter. This utterly shattered the minds of the old retainers. Heaven itself was playing assistant to a blacksmith? Were they dreaming? With the help of the heavenly lightning, two perfect, translucent bodies were finally complete, emitting an aura far more terrifying than any immortal pressure. "Yao! Yao! Now!" I roared. Wiping the sweat from her face, she bit her finger without hesitation, dripping her bloodline essence onto the foreheads of both bodies. Then, she carefully held up the creation soul stone and drew out the two remaining souls. The moment they touched the refined bodies, the array sucked them in. A blinding white light exploded across the entire courtyard, making it feel as if time itself had completely frozen. As the white light faded, two slender, tall figures lay quietly on the bronze anvil. Then, a faint but steady heartbeat echoed through the courtyard. Thump, thump, the man and woman lying there opened their eyes together. Their eyes were blank at first, slowly clearing. When they saw Su Yao weeping right beside them, tears instantly spilled from their eyes. "Yao Yao," the woman whispered, her voice weak but filled with endless, deep love. Su Yao threw herself into the woman's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. "Mommy, Daddy, I thought I would never see you again." The man reached out with trembling hands, pulling them both close. The family of three wept together in a tight embrace. Those old retainers wept tears of joy, kowtowing repeatedly. "Heaven blesses our kingdom. Heaven blesses us." Chu Feng, Mu Shui, and Chang turned away to wipe their tears, and even the eye of heaven I had pinned to the ground seemed I squeezed out a fake tear of thunder, then casually tossed the eye of heaven back into the sky like a playground ball. "All right, you are done here. Go chill somewhere else." Relieved, the massive eye zipped into the clouds, running faster than a rabbit. The storm clouds vanished instantly, pouring warm sunlight back into my courtyard. Supported by their daughter, Su Yao's parents walked over to me. They could clearly tell that this ordinary-looking blacksmith was actually an unfathomably powerful master. They knelt right down without hesitation. "Senior, your incredible grace is something we can never repay. If you do not mind, we will work like slaves in your shop." I quickly pulled them up and patted the husband's shoulder. "Do not go kneeling at every turn. My blacksmith shop does not harbor any big shots. Since you are alive, just focus on being there for Yao Yao. She has suffered enough these past 2 years." Su Yao hugged my arm tightly. "Brother Fan is the best person ever. He taught me how to eat, forge, and made me so beautifully chubby." Hearing her innocent chatter, everyone burst out laughing. The tense, sorrowful atmosphere from earlier vanished, replaced by the warmth of surviving a disaster. Suddenly, a ding rang in my head. "Congratulations, host. Your eldest disciple's trauma is fully healed. Her special constitution, Master of Creation, has awakened. All hidden disciple tasks are complete. Your seal is lifted, progress is at 100%. You have received the ultimate title of Sovereign of 10,000 Realms." I closed my eyes, feeling the power inside me, vast and limitless like an ocean of stars, fully awakening. At this very moment, with a single breath, I could reduce this entire cultivation world to ashes, if I wished. A single thought could create countless new universes. I am finally unrivaled under heaven. The system's flattering voice continued. "Master Host, you are now invincible across all realms. Do you wish to immediately ascend to the supreme divine realm and take control of the universe? I opened my eyes and looked at this worn-down but lively little courtyard. Chu Feng was excitedly polishing a newly forged farm tool. Mu Shui was carefully wiping down her crimson sword with a cloth. Zhu Dechang hummed a tune in the kitchen while chopping veggies. Su Ya was happily showing her parents her extremely ugly crocodile skin apron. Leng Qingchu held a broom, a peaceful smile on her face as she swept fallen leaves into a pile. All of this was so ordinary, yet so incredibly real and warm. I took a deep breath of the air, smelling food and laughter, and smiled warmly. In my mind, I told the system, ascend? Screw that. Is the food up there any better than Dechang's braised pork? Is ruling the universe more fun than watching my disciples grow stronger? Just shut up and stay in this blacksmith shop. The system seemed speechless, but replied obediently, understood, host. Have fun blacksmithing. I walked over to the center of the yard, flopped onto my favorite rocking chair, and picked up my old fan to wave some cool air my way. Dechang, tonight is a feast. Cook up your absolute best dishes. To celebrate Yao Yao's family reunion, we are having a full demon feast. From the kitchen, Zhu Dachang shouted back, you got it, master. I guarantee you will want to swallow your own tongues. Chu Feng leaned in with a grin and asked, Master, we sold that fire poker for 15 million. We are the richest now. Shouldn't we renovate this old shop tomorrow? I glared at him. Renovate? What renovate? This is returning to basics. What do you know? Tomorrow morning, you better keep swinging that sledgehammer. Miss a single swing, and no dinner for you. Chu Feng wailed in misery, making Mu Shui let out a rare, bell-like laugh. Leng Qingchu walked over carrying a plate of freshly sliced spirit fruits and placed them respectfully by my side. Senior, please enjoy. I took a bite of a sweet, crisp slice. Life is just so simple and boring. I could easily slap an immortal emperor to death, yet I prefer staying in this dusty shop, forging and watching my disciples goofing around in the yard, listening to the symphony of pots and pans in the kitchen. To me, this is the perfect ending.